Okay, so I'm here right now, and on the AP exam, you will have one task called email. And on that task, the proctor expects to see some answers or some part of your answer on your paper. And I've broken down what the proctor is looking for or is expecting to see on your paper here in checklist. So we have checklist number 1. You should use a formal grading. Checklist number 2. You have to thank him or her for the email and elaborate. So whoever wrote the email to you, you want to thank him or thank her for the email and elaborate. And checklist number 3, you have to answer the 2 questions. As you know, in the email, you have 2 questions that you have to address. So you want to answer those 2 questions. And checklist number 4, you have to ask for more information and ask 1 question. And checklist number 5, if you need more information, please contact me, and I'm eagerly waiting for your response. And finally, checklist number 6, you have to close your email with the equivalent of sincerely, and you shouldn't use the same closing that is used in the email. So we have to go a little backwards so you can see what I'm talking about exactly here. And I will share one example of an email. So this is one email. I guess you can see my screen. And in this email, the student is answering to the task that to the email that was given to him or her. And I'll read it to you. Cher Monsieur Rochard, je vous remercie de votre courriel à propos de ma participation à votre programme l'été dernier. En réponse à votre première question, j'ai beaucoup apprécié mon expérience l'été dernier parce que j'ai rencontré une variété de gens uniques. Je suis devenu ami avec une femme qui est française et j'ai appris beaucoup à propos de sa culture. En ce qui me concerne, ou en ce qui concerne votre deuxième question, cet été, je pense que je veux essayer de jouer au tennis. Après votre camp, l'été dernier, j'ai appris des choses de tennis dans ma communauté, donc je veux continuer cette activité cet été avec votre programme. All right, so in this email, we will go step by step and try to locate the six steps I just mentioned earlier in the 6 checklists that I mentioned here. So again, I will go back to the email. Je vous remercie à propos de votre courriel à propos de ma participation à votre programme l'an dernier. Et en réponse à votre première question, j'ai beaucoup apprécié mon expérience l'été dernier. So first of all, checklist number 1, I'm looking here. It says use a formal grading. So do we have a formal grading in this email? Yes, it says cher Monsieur Rochard. Cher Monsieur Rochard. So you want to make sure that you open your email with a formal greeting. And checklist number 2, you want to thank the person who wrote the email and elaborate. So I'm looking here. So je regarde et je cherche, est-ce qu'il y a une formule de politesse? La première, oui, il y a une formule de politesse. Maintenant, est-ce que, checklist number 1, au numéro 1, est-ce que il dit merci pour l'email et est-ce qu'il écrit et est-ce qu'il élabore? Donc, la première phrase, je vous remercie de votre courriel. Ça, c'est le remerciement. So, he or she is thanking for the email. and is elaborated à propos de ma participation à votre programme l'été dernier. So here you just don't want to stop by saying je vous remercie de votre courriel and jump into the first question. You have to elaborate. So your sentence should include thank you for the email, and then a few words about what the email is talking about. So that's what they call it. About that I call elaboration. Je vous remercie de votre courriel à propos de ma participation à votre programme l'été dernier. And now, checklist number 2. Or checklist number 3. Answer the two questions. So I'm looking into the email here. Checklist number 3. En réponse à votre première question, j'ai beaucoup apprécié mon expérience l'été dernier. So on the paper, I'm looking for the checklist number 3, which is the first question and the second question. So here, the student states clearly en réponse à votre première question to answer your first question, and then you answer the question, of course. J'ai beaucoup apprécié mon expérience l'été dernier parce que j'ai rencontré une variété de gens uniques. Je suis devenu ami avec une femme qui est française et j'ai appris à propos de sa culture. So you just don't want to stop to writing or saying that I'm answering to the first question. You want to answer the question and say something about it. En réponse à votre première question, j'ai apprécié mon expérience l'été dernier. J'ai rencontré une variété de gens uniques et je suis devenu ami avec une femme qui est française. Et j'ai appris de sa culture. Et maintenant, la deuxième question, the second question. En ce qui concerne votre deuxième question, cet été dernier, je pense que je vais essayer de jouer au tennis après votre camp, l'été, après votre camp. No, je vais jouer au tennis. So it stops there. So that's the second question. So again, I go back. First is the opening formule de politesse. Cher Monsieur Rochard. And thank you for the email and elaborating. I have it in those first few sentences. And then I will answer the two questions. En réponse à votre première question, j'ai beaucoup apprécié mon expérience l'été dernier. Et ensuite, en ce qui concerne votre deuxième question, so once we have those two questions answered, we jump to the next checklist. And the next one is checklist number 4, ask for more information and ask a question. And we're looking into this email. Do we see that here? So the second question, en ce qui concerne votre deuxième question, je pense que je vais essayer de jouer au tennis. So it stops there. And now we're looking for more information. Après votre camp l'été dernier, j'ai appris des classes de tennis. J'ai pris des classes de tennis dans ma communauté, dont je veux continuer cette activité ou cet été à votre programme. So that's checklist number 4. Ask for more information and a question. And in this email, I do not see a question being asked. The email ends suddenly and does not include, so stops at checklist number 4. So here you want to make sure that you touch all the checklists that I have here for you in your email. So you need to ask more information and ask one question. And checklist number 5, if you need more information, please contact me, and I'm eagerly waiting for your response. And again, we're saying that this email is incomplete, or this response is incomplete because it does not include all the parts or all the checklists that I have here for you. All right, so I may ask you if you had to complete this email, What would you say for checklist number 5, for example, or checklist number 4? No, checklist number 4 is included, but number 5, if you need more information, please contact me as I'm eagerly waiting for your response. And we can go back and look at the email, and together we can figure that out. Je vous remercie de votre courriel à propos de ma participation à votre programme l'été dernier. So here, she received an email regarding her participation to a camp last year, and she's responding to it. And she's saying, to answer your first question, I appreciate it, or I enjoy my experience at the camp, and I met a variety of people, and I became friends with one of the ladies, and she's French. I learned a lot about her culture. And then she said, to answer the second question, so the question is, what would she like to do if she had to come back to the camp? En ce qui concerne votre deuxième question, je pense que je vais essayer de jouer au tennis. So she would like to play tennis. Après votre camp l'été dernier, j'ai pris des classes de tennis dans ma communauté, dont je veux continuer cette activité à cet été à votre programme. So she's saying, after the camp, she enjoyed all the activities, and after she came back, she took some tennis classes, and now she would like to go back to the camp to continue with that activity. So now, what is checklist number 5 telling us? If you need more information, please contact me, and I'm eagerly waiting for your response. So here she could say, si vous avez besoin de plus d'informations, if you need more information, je me tiens à votre disposition. Je me tiens à votre disposition et vous pouvez me contacter à l'adresse ou à mon adresse email suivante. So if you need more information, I will be ready, and you can contact me. You could contact me at my following email address. And obviously, you need to close your email with the equivalent of sincerely. And again, here we're saying that you shouldn't use the same, you cannot use the same closing that you have in the email. So if the email is saying we have a lot of closings here I'm looking for the closings here. All right, so different closings or possible closings we could use. Cordialement, sincèrement, je vous souhaite une bonne journée. À bientôt. Je vous prie d'agréer mes salutations distinguées. Sincères salutations, mes sentiments respectueux. Sentiments respectueux, mes sincères salutations. Sentiments distingués. Je vous prie d'agréer. Je vous prie d'accepter. Ou je suis impatiente. J'ai hâte de travailler en vous remerciant à l'avance. And so on. So those are possible closings you could use for your email. And if I go back to this email, we say this email ended suddenly. She did everything almost well until checklist number 4, where she stopped. And she did not continue to checklist number 5, which was to add more information and say that she's ready for, and include her contact, and she's ready for more information or to provide more information if needed. And finally, he or she had to close the email, and we just looked at possible closings that he or she could have used. All right, so I think here I don't know if there's any questions so far. Are there any question? Are there questions at this point? If we have no questions, I will go back to the presentation. And I will invite you, those who are watching, so we could go to Quizlet for a quick review of the different checklists to make sure that you remember what we're supposed to do on the email task. And before we go there, maybe I could go over that again. All right, so checklist number 1, again, use the formal grading. And these are possible gradings you could use for checklist number 1. Cher Monsieur, and the title, so Cher Monsieur Rochard, Cher Monsieur Rodrigue, Cher Madame, and the title, Cher Monsieur ou Madame, Monsieur le directeur, Madame la directrice, Monsieur le maire. And for checklist number 2, we say you have to thank for the email and elaborate. And thanking could be, je vous remercie de m'avoir répondu. So I thank you for having replied to me. Je vous remercie de m'avoir envoyé votre courriel. Thank you for sending me your email. Je vous remercie de m'avoir inclus dans ce projet. Thank you for including me in this project. Je vous remercie de m'avoir invité à participer à votre stage. Thank you for inviting me to participate in your internship. Je suis content que vous m'ayez choisi. I'm happy that you chose me too. Je vous suis très reconnaissant de. I'm very thankful to you for. And checklist number 3 will be answering the 2 questions. Concernant, so these are some expressions you could use in your email. Concernant votre première question, so regarding or concerning your first question. Pour répondre à votre première question, to respond or to answer your first question. And of course, when you say that, you just don't stop there. You have to answer the question itself and possibly elaborate. And then you move on to the second question. Votre deuxième question, pour répondre à votre deuxième question, en réponse à votre deuxième question. So your second question, or in response to your second question. No, the deuxième question. Your second question. I'm sorry about that. Okay. To answer your second question, ou en ce qui concerne votre deuxième question, or concerning your second question, j'aimerais, I would like to, je m'intéresse à, and we will look at one email and go try to respond to that email as a group. And here, checklist number 4, you have to ask for more information and ask one question. Pourriez-vous me donner plus de précisions sur? Could you give me more details or more information on? Serait-il possible de? Will it be possible to? Veuillez m'envoyer, please send me. Je vous prie de me livrer. Please send me, or j'espère que vous voudrez bien. I hope you will. And checklist number 5, you need more information, please contact me and I'm eagerly waiting for your response. Si vous aviez besoin de plus de renseignements, veuillez me contacter. Je suis prêt à vous fournir. So that's checklist number 5, where you have to provide more information, and more likely your contact. And ultimately, checklist number 6 is our closing. And we went over that. So the different or the possible closing you could use: cordialement, cordially, sincèrement, sincerely. Je vous souhaite une bonne journée. I hope you have a nice day. À bientôt. Je vous prie d'agréer mes salutations distinguées. Sincères salutations, mes sentiments respectueux. Sentiments respectueux, mes sincères salutations. Sentiments distingués. Je vous prie d'agréer, je vous prie d'accepter. Je suis impatiente de, j'ai hâte de travailler avec vous en vous remerciant à l'avance. All right, that being said, that's the technical part of your email. So that's the structure you want to have on your email. But besides that, you want to make sure that the proctor sees some grammatical structures in your email. And I will show you this one. And as you know, the proctor has a lot of paper to grade, and he's going through the paper very fast. But he wants to make sure that he sees that structure I just mentioned. And also, besides that, the things you will truly want to emphasize on are making sure that you have some basic structures in your email. So meaning that you can write a sentence perfectly or well using the present tense, the passé composé that you've learned in class, and we will not go back to that right now. So you want to make sure that your sentences are well structured, and the basic, what we call the basic structure on the AP exam or the AP task is present tense, passé composé, je mange, j'ai mangé de la pizza, je mange de la pizza, je vais au camp chaque année, je suis allé au camp régulièrement chaque année. So you want to make sure that you have that bit, at least a few basic structures in your email. And if the proctor can see at least 3 basic structures in your email, so meaning that you have a subject, verb, and a predicate in your email, 3 of them, well structured in the present tense or in the passé composé, that could earn you a 3 on the email task. And if besides that, you have some advanced structure, what we call advanced structures, meaning the imparfait, the future simple, and some direct objects in your email, in your sentences, that could earn you a 4. And if on top of that, you could have some advanced structures. And advanced structure are, for example, I will go down, I will scroll down here. All right, some advanced structure are things like linking words. D'abord, ensuite, puis, enfin. So these are advanced structures. D'abord, ensuite, puis, enfin. Those are some examples of linking words or connection or connecting words that you need to use in your email. And as you see here too, for the basic structures, we talked about the passé composé. We talk about the present tense. So passé composé here, je suis allé, nous avons mangé, je suis rentré, j'ai regardé. And here, je me lavé is not used properly. So je me suis lavé, je me suis couché. So again, you want to make sure that besides the frame that includes the checklist, you have sentences that are well structured. And what we call the thousand talk, you do not want the thousand talk in your email. You want to make sure that the verbs are well conjugated and the sentences are well structured. And again, the basic structure will be the present tense, the passé composé, some advanced structure that will earn you more than a 3 on the task will be the imparfait, the futur simple, direct object, and some advanced structure will include the passé composé for reflexive verb, for example, the conditional, the subjunctive. So those are considered advanced structures. The conditional, the subjunctive, we talked about the subjunctive, the conditional, and some compound tenses, like the plus que parfait. All right, so let's look at this email again and see what you think this student could earn on the exam if he or she had finished the email or had closed the email as he or she should. Here, cher Monsieur Rochard, je vous remercie de votre courriel à propos de ma participation dans votre programme l'été dernier. So when I look at this sentence, for example, if I'm a proctor or any proctor looking at this email, the first sentence, and again, I'll leave alone the frame of the email that includes the checklist. Now I'm focusing on the grammar part. That will give you that will determine what grade you will have on this task. Je vous remercie de votre courriel à propos de ma participation à votre programme. That's a perfect sentence in French. And when I look at the sentence, je vous remercie, remercie ends with an E, so that's a great conjugation. Je vous remercie, so this is a direct object. So this is considered as an advanced structure. So this student, if he or she had closed the email properly, he or she is entitled to at least a 3 on this in this email. En réponse à votre première question, j'ai beaucoup apprécié, that's a passé composé, which is considered as an advanced structure, or I mean as a basic structure. Mon expérience l'été dernier parce que j'ai rencontré, un autre passé composé, une variété de gens en essayant beaucoup. Je suis devenu ami avec une femme qui est française. Je suis devenu. That's the passé composé with être, and this one is considered as an advanced structure. Je suis devenu. And not only the student or the candidate is able to use the passé composé with être, but he or she is able to make the agreement that should be done here. Je suis devenu. So devenu, we know that je suis devenu is a female who is talking here, so we know that the candidate is a female, and devenu has an E, which shows the agreement between the past participle and the subject, which is a female. Who is a female? Je suis devenu ami avec une femme qui est française. Qui est française? This qui here, this pronoun qui is another advanced structure. Et j'ai appris, the passé composé, basic structure. So we know that this email is at least a 3, and we are looking for reasons to give the candidate a 4 or 5 and even a 6. So we have a lot of basic structure. We agree that this candidate has more than a 3 on the email. And we will come back to the closing of the email. That's a different deal. J'ai appris beaucoup à propos de sa culture. À propos de sa culture. À propos de, that's considered again as an advanced structure. So as you're studying, as you're preparing for the email task, you want to set aside a list of words you could use in your email. I'm not telling you, I'm not asking you to memorize or to get stuck with just a few words that you, but if you have a few words that you know or that you could build on, that would be great. When words or expressions such as linking words, d'abord, après, ensuite. So those are things a proctor that will bump you up to more than a 3 once he is convinced that you have some basic structure. You can form sentences in the present tense, use the passé composé with avoir, and if on top of that you can add those linking words, that ultimately would take you to more than 3. And you want to review your passé composé with être as well. You want to review your subjunctive. You want to review your conditional, which are considered advanced structures. So I will move back to that. So as you see here, basic structure, present tense, passé composé. I'm not going back to that all the time, but I'm just insisting to make you understand how important it is to know what this proctor is looking for or is expecting to see on your paper. And as I told you at the beginning, the proctor goes over so many papers in the course of a day that there's no way they could read everything in all the details if they don't have something like this on the side to guide them or to guide their decision on whether you deserve a 3 or 4 or 5. So we do agree that this student has more than 3 because he or she, she is able to use the passé composé with être, can use preposition like qui in the sentence, or not preposition, can use the key, the relative pronoun qui in the sentence in sentences, and can also add expressions such as à propos de, je pense que, and so on. All right, so let's go back to the presentation itself. I know you have this, you should have this available to you, and at your convenience, you can go over this and try to practice on. So I will open this email and together we will see. Oops. Bear with me, I'm opening the email. Okay. Voilà, voici l'email de. Ouais, so, chers messieurs, je vous écris suite à l'article intitulé Un vélo dans la tête, paru dans la première édition du matin. Is it the email? 1 second, let me just make sure. I'm sorry, this is not the wire. Okay, that's not the email. All right, so this is the email we will respond to. Chers participants, merci de nous avoir contactés au sujet de notre programme d'échange en Afrique afin d'assurer une expérience favorable à tous. Nous faisons notre mieux pour trouver un lycée une famille d'accueil qui corresponde aux participants potentiels. Donc, avant de vous envoyer plus de détails, il nous serait très utile d'en savoir plus sur vous et vos préférences. Vos réponses aux questions suivantes nous aideront à vous offrir le meilleur séjour possible. Dites-nous dans quelle région d'Afrique vous préfériez vivre et pourquoi. Quel serait pour vous le type de famille idéale, d'accueil idéal pour votre séjour? Nous vous serions très reconnaissants de bien vouloir répondre dès que possible afin que nous puissions prendre en compte votre dossier. Dans l'attente voulue, nous vous prions d'agréer l'expression de nos salutations distinguées à Waba, secrétaire Destination Afrique. Okay, so cet email or this email is about le programme d'échange, an exchange program. And the participant, when you're reading the email, you want to make sure that you understand it. That's the first thing, of course. You want to understand the email. And you want to look at the two questions. Those are the two things that you'll be focusing on as you read the email. First of all, understand what the email is about. And second of all, try to find what are the two questions that are asked in the email. And obviously, based on your understanding of the email, that's how you should be able to reply to the two questions. And once that is done, you will go over the checklist. And again, we talked about so to reply to the email, we will use a formal greeting. Second checklist item in our checklist, we will have to thank him or her and reply in the email and elaborate. And we have to answer the two questions that we've located prior in advance. And checklist number 4, or item number 4 on our checklist, ask for more information. Number 5, make ourselves available by providing our contact. And 6, we have to close the email. So let's go back to that email and see again what it is about. Je vous remercie de nous avoir contactés au sujet de notre programme de chansons. Keywords in the email. Notre programme d'échange en Afrique. So we know that it's an exchange program and it's in Africa. Afin d'assurer une expérience favorable à tous, nous faisons notre mieux pour trouver un lycée et une famille d'accueil. So programme d'échange en Afrique, keywords or key expressions, trouver un lycée et une famille d'accueil. So we know that it's an exchange program in Africa. They're trying to find a host family. Donc, avant de vous envoyer plus de détails, il nous serait utile de savoir plus sur vous et vos préférences. So, utile d'en savoir plus sur vous et vos préférences. So, third thing in the email, in this specific email, they want to have more information about you. So, exchange program in Africa, trying to find a host family, and want to get more information about you. So that gives us a clear idea about what the email is talking about. We don't need to know all the words in the email, even though this one or most emails that will be given to you on the AP exam will be relatively easy to understand or accessible to an average candidate. And first question, dites-nous dans quelle région d'Afrique vous préféreriez vivre et pourquoi? So tell us in what region of Africa, what part of Africa you would like to live and why. Quel serait le type de famille d'accueil idéal pour vous, pour votre séjour? And here, I know over the course of your study of your 4 years of study French, you most likely have made a project on one country in Africa. And here you do not want to be vague in your response. You want to focus on, for example, the one country that you made the project on in French 1 or in French 2, and show off your knowledge of that part of Africa, for example, or French-speaking country, if it was any other French-speaking country in the world. So here you want to talk about maybe the western part of Africa. You want to talk about Senegal, Mali, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and so on. Or you want to talk about Central Africa, Cameroon, République Centrafricaine, Congo, Gabon, or you want to talk about East Africa or the southern part of Africa, Rwanda, Burundi. And here they're asking you, what would you like to live there? So of course, like I say, it depends on your knowledge. This goes with your knowledge of Africa or countries in Africa. And again, you don't want to go into a lot of details. You can choose one major thing that you know about the country and focus on that. What we're looking for here, or what the proctor is looking for, is not necessarily all the details about the country, but it's just you being able to locate one country in Africa, being able to talk about the location of that country in Africa, and one major fact about, for example, you're talking about Cameroon, you want to talk about soccer. They like to play soccer. They're great players of soccer. And you want to talk about what you would like to be in a family that plays soccer. As you know, that in Cameroon, or in most countries in Africa, they like to play that game or that sport. And quel serait pour vous le type de famille d'accueil idéal pour votre séjour? And again, you can just focus on that sport, for example, and say, I would like to be in a family that can play, as I know that in Cameroon, they're interested in playing soccer. I would like to be in a family with kids that are interested in the game, and you can bring your knowledge of the soccer game to life here. And that's just an example. It could be about anything. It could be about tourism. It could be about food and anything that you can think of. And here they're saying, nous vous serions très reconnaissants de bien vouloir nous répondre dès que possible afin que nous puissions prendre en compte votre dossier. So we'd like you to answer as soon as possible so we could consider your application. And again, once we start with our email, we will reply. We know it's written by our bar secrétaire Destination Afrique. We might not know if our bar is a female or a male. So here, we don't want to take a chance by saying Madame, Monsieur, Awa, or Madame, Awa, if we are not certain about. You can just say Monsieur ou Madame, Monsieur ou Madame, ou Monsieur la secrétaire, chez Madame la secrétaire, chez Monsieur la secrétaire, Monsieur, Madame la secrétaire. So do not be specific if you're not certain. And once we introduce our email, and merci, or je vous remercie, you have to thank for the email. Je vous remercie de votre email et des informations que vous m'avez fournies. So thank you for your email and all the information you provided me with. And checklist number 3, again. So answer the 2 questions. And we learned how to answer the 2 questions in the checklist, or we went over that. En réponse, no, this is thank you for the email. Concernant votre première question, ou pour répondre à votre première question, et la première question dans cet email, the first question in this email, dites-nous dans quelle région d'Afrique vous préfériez vivre? And we say we can, if our knowledge of Africa is limited, we could base it on what we know from the presentation we've done in class over the 4 years we've been in the study of French. So for example, if I've studied Côte d'Ivoire, I will say, je voudrais vivre. Pour répondre à votre première question, j'aimerais, I would like to. And again, as you see that j'aimerais, that's the conditional. And that brings to life, that is an advanced structure. J'aimerais vivre dans la région, j'aimerais vivre à l'ouest de l'Afrique. So when you say, I would like to live in West Africa, or I would like to visit, or I would like to be in West Africa. So in that simple sentence, you have an advanced structure, and also you bring into life your knowledge of Africa. You know that Côte d'Ivoire is in West Africa. J'aimerais visiter la Côte d'Ivoire à l'ouest de l'Afrique. Et maintenant, en réponse à votre deuxième question, of course, when you answer the first question, you could elaborate before you move on to the second question. J'aimerais aller en Afrique de l'Ouest et plus précisément en Côte d'Ivoire parce que c'est un pays très chaleureux et convivial. Quel serait pour vous le type de famille d'accueil idéal de votre séjour? En réponse à votre deuxième question, so to answer your second question, ma famille ou le type de famille idéal pour moi, le type de famille d'accueil idéal pour mon séjour serait, and you don't say pour votre séjour, pour mon séjour, because you talk about you, and just switching from votre to mon shows the proctor that you have some control of your language. Le type de famille d'accueil idéal pour mon séjour serait une famille qui a un garçon qui s'intéresse au foot, avec un garçon qui s'intéresse au foot. So the type of family I would like, my ideal host family would be a family with a young boy who is interested in soccer, or a girl who plays volleyball, depending on the sport that you know, or someone who could take me around to visit the city if you're interested in tourism or the country. So you want to make sure that you answer both questions. That's our checklist number. Let me go back. Number 3, 4, numéro 4, numéro 3. So number 3, you answer both questions. And checklist number 4, ask for more information. So here you want to ask for more information and provide your contact. Here in this email, what kind of information you could ask for? Est-ce que is it possible to stay, or is it possible to bring some personal items? Anything you could say to add more information or to ask a question about the email. What the proctor is looking for is not necessarily the content of your question, but is the form of the question. Is it a correct sentence? Is it related to what is being said in the email? That is important, of course, but not necessarily what you're saying. How you say it is what matters the most. Are you using your basic structure, present tense, passé composé with avoir, or can you add more to it by using j'aimerais savoir, I would like to know, which is the conditional. Est-il possible que quelqu'un vienne m'accueillir à l'aéroport? Is it possible that someone welcomes me at the airport, which is the subjunctive? So that's another advanced structure that you could add to it. So you want to show off your French by going above the basic structures that is required from you in the email task. And finally, for checklist number 5, that's what we just did. So, je me tiens à votre disposition. I make myself available to answer any question that you will need to know about me. Et vous pouvez me joindre à mon email. You could contact me at my email, at my following email. You add your email or at my phone number or any form of communication, any mode of communication that you prefer. Checklist number 6, we want to close our email with the equivalent of sincerely. And again, we do not want to use what has been used in the email. And when we're looking at this email specifically, it is saying, dans l'attente de vous lire, nous vous prions d'agréer l'expression de nos salutations distinguées. So, for your email task, you could memorize 2 expressions to open your email, 2 expressions to ask the questions, to answer the questions, an expression to ask a question, and 2 expressions to close your email. Just in case one is used, you can use the other one. You don't want to memorize the whole list because, of course, it is a lot to go over and to have by heart. So, for example, here you could say, cher monsieur, monsieur ou madame, monsieur le maire, monsieur, madame. So, cher monsieur ou cher madame and monsieur, madame, those 2 should be enough for you as a formal greeting. Cher monsieur or cher madame, or monsieur, madame. So, in case the email does not state clearly whether it's a female or a male, you could just say monsieur, madame, which means to whom it may concern. Je vous remercie de m'avoir répondu. Je vous remercie de m'avoir votre courriel. So here again, you can memorize 2 of them. Je vous remercie de m'avoir répondu. Je vous suis très reconnaissant de. Just those 2, for example, should be enough for this list. So on each list, you can memorize 2 expressions. In case one is used, you can use the other one. And for the answering the questions, you are the one answering the questions in the email. Pour répondre à votre première question, to answer your first question, pour répondre à votre deuxième question, and you want to keep some sense of logic in what you're doing. If you started pour répondre à votre première question, it will make more sense if you continue pour répondre à votre deuxième question. And checklist number 4, ask for more information. Pourriez-vous me donner? And here is a conditional. As we said, the conditional will be considered as an advanced structure. Pourriez-vous me donner plus de précision sur? Could you give me more information about? So that by itself will make the proctor know that you can go above the basic structures. That will take you above a 3. And checklist number 5, if you needed more information, si vous aviez besoin de plus de renseignements, if you could memorize only this expression, obviously that is an advanced structure. If you needed more information, that's an advanced structure. And finally, to close your email, we said you can also here on the list memorize 2 expressions. If one is used, you use the other one. You don't need to know the whole list. 2 expressions, if you have sincèrement in your email, then you say cordialement. As easy as that. All right. So I wasn't looking at the chat. So I do not have any question here in the chat. You have the contact of my assistant, or you can contact him anytime if you have any question regarding the email. We can go over, you can go over the email that I presented to you or any other one that you may find on the AP website or online. And as you're working on it, if you have any question at any time, feel free to get back to us, and we will keep in touch with you. All right. So if I'll be looking at I'm looking at the chat now. If you have any question at this time, I'll be happy to answer them. And the Quizlet, I did not go over the Quizlet, but the Quizlet is talking exactly about all the different checklist items for the email task. So if you go over the Quizlet, which the link is provided in the second or the third slide, that will help you review the different checklist for the email task. It's exactly the same thing. So any questions, type it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. All right. If no question at this time, again, I'm available and my assistant is available. Send us questions anytime and we can always review them and get back to you. Merci à tous pour votre participation. À bientôt pour vos questions. À bientôt pour vos questions. Et surtout, bonne chance. Bonne chance pour votre examen de AP. All right. Thank you very much. OK, bonjour et bienvenue à notre session de AP sur l'essai persuasif. Et vous le savez déjà, je m'appelle Monsieur Yonga et nous avons eu une première session qui portait sur la tâche de l'email. Donc voilà, aujourd'hui, nous allons parler de l'essai persuasif. Je vais partager mon écran pour commencer. Alors, comme je le disais, nous allons parler de l'essai persuasif, mais avant l'essai persuasif, j'aimerais bien avoir température, prendre votre température, savoir comment vous vous sentez, comment vous allez pour cette session. Et qu'est-ce que je fais là? D'accord, je vais continuer sur ma présentation. Alors, donc, c'est la session de AP, de Fiveable, sur l'essai persuasif, et je suis M. Yonga. Je vais présenter avec Esher Ouassi, qui est mon assistant. Alors, pour une petite introduction, et je l'ai fait. Maintenant, je vais prendre votre température sur Mentimeter. Si vous pouvez aller au lien ci-après et me dire comment vous vous sentez pour l'examen de AP. Est-ce que vous êtes prêt? Est-ce que vous n'êtes pas tout à fait prêt? Est-ce que vous êtes inquiet? Comment est-ce que vous vous sentez? Donc, je voudrais que vous me disiez comment ça se passe dans votre tête, comment vous vous préparez pour l'examen. Alors, pour parler de l'essai persuasif, voici le plan de la journée ou le plan de ce que nous ferons aujourd'hui. Nous commencerons par parler du processus. Ensuite, nous parlerons de l'organisation de l'essai. Puis, nous parlerons de l'essentiel de l'essai, des stratégies, ce qu'il faut savoir, ce qu'il faut faire avant d'écrire, ce qu'il faut savoir et ce qu'il faut faire pendant l'écriture, et ce qu'il faut savoir et ce qu'il faut faire après avoir écrit. Alors, je vais commencer par le processus. Donc, pour le processus, sachez que vous aurez 55 minutes au total. Donc, pour l'essai persuasif, la tâche de l'essai persuasif, vous aurez 55 minutes au total pour le compléter, pour le terminer. Alors, de 55 minutes, vous aurez 6 minutes pour lire le sujet, la source numéro 1, c'est-à-dire l'article, et la source numéro 2, c'est-à-dire le graphique. Et ensuite, vous aurez 30 secondes pour lire l'introduction de la source numéro 3, qui est l'audio. Donc, vous allez écouter. Et pour cela, vous allez écouter pendant 5 à 6 minutes. Donc, vous aurez 5 à 6 minutes pour écouter l'audio 2 fois. Et finalement, vous aurez 40 minutes restantes pour préparer, écrire et vérifier l'essai. Alors, je vais me résumer. Quand j'aurai fini de tout présenter en français, je vais me résumer en anglais. Donc, si vous ne comprenez pas tout ce que je suis en train de dire, c'est pas bien grave pour le moment. Alors, je vais y revenir en anglais. Donc, pour me répéter, vous aurez 55 minutes au total pour cette tâche, 6 minutes pour lire le sujet, la source numéro 1 et la source numéro 2, c'est-à-dire l'article, le graphique, 30 secondes pour lire l'introduction de la source numéro 3, l'audio, et 5 à 6 minutes pour écouter l'audio 2 fois, et enfin 40 minutes pour préparer, écrire et vérifier l'essai. Alors, comment est-ce que vous organisez votre essai? Ce serait une bonne idée d'écrire 5 paragraphes. Ça, c'est l'idéal. 5 paragraphes, c'est l'idéal. Ça peut aller au-delà de 5, ça peut être 6 paragraphes, ça peut être légèrement moins, ça peut être 4. Mais l'idéal serait que vous ayez 5 paragraphes. Le premier paragraphe serait une introduction avec une thèse. Donc, vous allez introduire votre sujet avec une thèse. Quand je dis une thèse, ça veut dire vous prenez parti dès le début de votre travail dans votre introduction. Est-ce que vous êtes pour? Est-ce que vous êtes contre? Il n'y a pas de position neutre. Soit vous êtes pour, soit vous êtes contre. Vous devez prendre position dès l'introduction. Et nous verrons un peu plus clairement dans les pages à venir comment ça va se passer. Ensuite, Vous devez avoir 3 paragraphes qui montrent et qui soutiennent votre thèse et vos arguments. Donc, si vous êtes pour, écrivez 3 paragraphes pour montrer que vous êtes pour. Si vous êtes contre, également, vous écrivez 3 paragraphes pour montrer que vous êtes contre. Et finalement, vous aurez une partie, une conclusion qui va résumer votre thèse et vos arguments. Donc, dans la conclusion, c'est une récapitulation. Vous revenez sur tout ce que vous avez dit en quelques lignes. D'accord? Et maintenant, l'essentiel de l'essai. En quoi consiste l'essai? Il s'agit de faire un résumé des points de vue et il faut mentionner chaque source. Très, très important. Vous avez 3 sources, nous l'avons dit. Les 3 sources sont le texte, le graphique et l'audio. Donc, vous devez mentionner les 3 sources dans votre essai. Et nous verrons comment ça se passe. Et vous indiquez clairement votre position, comme nous l'avons dit depuis l'introduction. Vous prenez position. Est-ce que vous êtes pour ce qui est dit dans le sujet ou est-ce que vous êtes contre ce qui est dit? Alors, vous allez justifier à fond avec des détails votre position. Apporter des justifications, des éclaircissements. Pourquoi vous êtes pour? Pourquoi vous êtes contre? Avec des détails bien précis. En utilisant par exemple parce que je suis du même avis que, parce que je suis contre, parce que. Et maintenant, l'essentiel de l'essai, de quoi s'agit-il globalement? Il s'agit d'interpréter les sources, de synthétiser les sources et d'étayer vos arguments. Donc, vous avez 3 sources, vous allez interpréter les 3 sources. Vous allez les synthétiser, c'est-à-dire ramener les 3 sources ensemble. Quels sont les points communs entre les 3 sources? Qu'est-ce qu'on dit qui se répète dans les 3 sources? Donc, vous allez synthétiser les 3 sources et vous allez étayer vos arguments. Vous allez expliquer ce que vous êtes en train de dire dans des détails, avec des détails. Alors, des stratégies. Nous avons dit des stratégies avant d'écrire, avant de commencer, pendant l'écriture, pendant que vous écrivez, et enfin après avoir écrit. Maintenant, il s'agit de parler des stratégies d'avant-écriture. Avant de commencer, donnez-vous 5 minutes. Donnez-vous 5 minutes. Il faut bien comprendre les instructions et le sujet. Donc, quand vous prenez le sujet, ne vous lancez pas tout de suite dans ce que vous avez à faire. Prenez 5 minutes, chronométrez votre temps, lisez bien ce que vous avez à faire et essayez de comprendre les instructions et le sujet. Écrivez les mots-clés si c'est nécessaire ou les soulignez. Donc, soulignez les mots-clés dans le texte, dans le graphique. Réécrivez-les si c'est nécessaire et faites un plan. Faites un plan de devoir, c'est-à-dire votre introduction, votre thèse plan, votre argument numéro 1 avec des détails, votre argument numéro 2 avec des détails, votre argument numéro 3 avec des détails et un nouvel énoncé de la thèse, quelque chose de nouveau pour synthétiser tout. Et nous verrons quelques exemples d'essais persuasifs qui sont soit pas bien faits, soit qui sont assez bien faits ou qui sont très bien faits. Nous allons voir quelques exemples et vous comprendrez de quoi nous parlons exactement ici. Alors, pendant que vous écrivez, donc ça c'était les stratégies avant l'écriture. Maintenant, nous parlons des stratégies pendant l'écriture. Donc, pendant l'écriture, donnez-vous 30 minutes pour écrire. Et comme j'ai dit, essayez de vous chronométrer. Ayez une montre, votre téléphone à côté de vous, avec le temps. Prenez votre temps et donnez-vous 30 minutes pour écrire. Alors, répondez au sujet. faites des comparaisons entre ce qui est dit et ce qui se passe autour de vous, ce que vous savez du sujet. Utilisez ce que vous avez appris des cultures francophones. Parlez, faites des comparaisons entre le texte et ce que vous savez des cultures francophones. Ça peut être en France, ça peut être au Canada, ça peut être en Belgique, en Suisse ou dans n'importe quel autre pays francophone en Afrique ou dans les Caraïbes. Et évitez des citations. Vous ne voulez pas faire des citations dans votre devoir, dans votre essai persuasif. Et aussi, essayez de ne pas répéter le même langage. Utilisez un langage différent de celui que vous avez dans le sujet. Ne recopiez pas intégralement, n'imitez pas ou ne répétez pas ce qui se dit dans le sujet. Trouvez des mots qui soient différents de ce qui est dans le sujet. Et comme je l'ai déjà dit, intégrez chaque source. Citez les 3 sources. La première source, le texte. La deuxième source, le graphique. Et la troisième source, l'audio. Et également, nous allons voir cela dans les détails un peu plus en avant. Et maintenant, dites quelque chose de nouveau à la fin. Donc, pour vous résumer, dites quelque chose de nouveau. Ne répétez pas exactement ce que vous avez dit. Résumez-vous en d'autres termes, en de nouveaux termes. Alors, ça, c'était les stratégies avant l'écriture, pendant l'écriture. Maintenant, parlons des stratégies après l'écriture. Quand vous avez fini de tout écrire, quand vous avez fini votre essai persuasif, qu'est-ce qu'il vous reste à faire? Après avoir écrit 5 minutes, vérifiez la thèse et les arguments. Rentrez dans votre devoir, relisez votre devoir, vérifiez votre thèse, vérifiez vos arguments, vérifiez vos détails. Est-ce qu'ils sont clairs? Est-ce qu'ils sont bien développés? Est-ce que vous êtes confiant? Est-ce que vous êtes rassuré de ce que vous avez dit? Est-ce que vous avez bien dit ce que vous voulez dire? C'est-à-dire, vérifier la forme. Une variété de temps, des mots et des verbes. Et nous avons parlé des structures, des différentes structures dans le devoir de AP. Il y a ce qu'on appelle les structures de base, c'est-à-dire utiliser des phrases simples au présent, au passé composé, au futur. Ça, c'est ce qu'on appelle des structures de base. Et vous avez besoin d'y introduire des structures avancées, c'est-à-dire utiliser le subjonctif, utiliser le conditionnel si possible, et utiliser le passé composé avec être, et rassurez-vous que vous avez votre accord entre le sujet et votre verbe ou votre participe. Et comme nous disons, l'usage du subjonctif de l'indicatif, ça, c'est les structures avancées. L'usage du passé composé de l'imparfait, encore ça, sont des structures avancées. L'orthographe et les accents, vous revenez, vous vous rassurez que vous avez bien écrit, les mots sont justes et vous avez des accents sur vos mots. Très important de vous rassurer que les accents sont à leur place. Alors, pour l'examen d'AP, le correcteur veut voir une variété de structures dans votre devoir. Comme nous l'avons dit, des structures de base, le présent, le futur, le passé composé avec avoir, bien écrit, bien fait, et des structures avancées, le subjonctif, le passé composé avec être, l'imparfait, et aussi des mots de conjonction ou des mots de liaison. Nous allons y revenir. Alors, donc pour nous récapituler, pour résumer tout ce que nous venons de dire, Voici les 5 est-ce que indispensables à prendre en considération pour votre tâche d'essai persuasif. Est-ce que je connais la structure de la tâche? Est-ce que je sais ce qu'on attend de moi pour l'essai persuasif? Est-ce que je sais ce qu'il faut faire? Quelle est la structure de l'essai persuasif? Est-ce que je suis dans le temps imparti? Je dois me assurer que je garde le temps à l'œil. Est-ce que je respecte le temps que je me suis donné ou le temps qui est exigé, les 55 minutes? Est-ce que j'organise mon travail de façon à utiliser rationnellement les 55 minutes? Est-ce que j'ai lu et j'ai compris les 3 sources? La première source, nous le savons, c'est le texte. La deuxième source, le graphique. Et la troisième source, ce sera l'audio. Est-ce que j'ai lu et j'ai compris les 3 sources? Très important. Ne vous lancez pas tout de suite sans avoir compris les sources. Rassurez-vous que vous avez lu le texte, que vous avez lu votre graphique, que vous pouvez les interpréter et l'audio, vous comprenez de quoi il s'agit dans l'audio. Est-ce que j'ai cité les 3 sources? Pardon. Est-ce que j'ai cité les 3 sources dans mon essai? Et finalement, est-ce que j'ai respecté les structures ou les règles de l'écriture, c'est-à-dire les structures de base et les structures avancées? Nous avons parlé des structures de base, des phrases simples, bien écrites, au présent, au futur, au passé composé avec avoir, ou alors des phrases un peu plus avancées avec le subjonctif, le conditionnel, et on se rassure qu'on a des mots de liaison, des mots de conjonction dans son devoir. Nous y reviendrons. Alors, so let's talk about the tips and tricks of our persuasive essay task. So, to recap everything that we just said in French. So, you need to make a personal connection to the topic. Give a personal example in the first paragraph. Find your purpose using on informal writing, and we will get back to that a little later. Use your time wisely. So block your time, and that's what we've been saying in French. Make sure that you stay within the 55-minute that are given to you to complete the task, and organize your task in a manner that you use the 55-minute rationally, effectively. Divide the task into subtasks and allot a few minutes or a block of time to each part of the task. Understand the sources, very important. Don't just jump into your writing without understanding what you're talking about or what the sources are talking about. And we know when we talk about the sources, we're talking about the text, the graph, and the audio. So underline citable section in the reading. Take notes while listening. Form a structured response. Extract the various points of view. Outline your introduction and conclusion. Use transition words. Very important to have transition words. And further down, we will talk about the transition words, which one we can use. And you can limit your knowledge of transition words to a few that you plan to use in your essay. No matter what you have to write about, you can make sure to introduce those transition words into your essay. And that's what a proctor, an AP proctor is looking for. It's part of what the AP proctor is looking for within your task or the work that you've done. Your ability to use simple structures, and your ability to use advanced structures, and finally your ability to use transition words. So cite the sources, give credit to the source, and we will see how it goes a little further down. Paraphrase citation, discuss the data, use a specific example from the listening and answer listening section. Justify your opinion. And as we say, you have to take side in your essay from the get-go, from the introduction. Je pense que, je suis d'avis que, je suis contre, je ne pense pas que. So you have to take side. Are you for what is being said, or are you against what is being said? And why? Get into details to support your side. All right, so in the first example, you can give a personal example. This task is definitely the most academic, and it can be overwhelming if you do not know where to begin. You will be presented with two perspectives on the topic, and you will need to take a stance while supporting it with details. As you process the information from the sources, make a personal connection to the topic. This shows the AP readers that you truly understand the content. In the first paragraph, you want to set the tone that you know what you are talking about. So achieve this by sharing something about yourself and your life. And we will go over the examples, as I said, and you will see how good writing can include personal details, or a not good, so good writing may not include those details, those kind of details. All right, so here it is advisable to use the on in the formal writing. So you will be defending your opinion in your response, and the first step is knowing how to address the various viewpoints in the sources. Whenever you would say you or there in English, be sure to use on in French, and we will see a couple of examples here. So here we say, au Cameroun, tu fais la course de l'espoir chaque année. Instead of saying that, you say, au Cameroun, on fait la course de l'espoir chaque année. So the race of hope is done in Cameroon each year. So here you will say, au Cameroun, on fait la course de l'espoir chaque année. En France, ils travaillent 35 heures par semaine. Rather than say they work they say one works in a little translation, and in French it will be, en France, on travaille 35 heures par semaine. That lightens what you're saying and make it easy. And here in il travaille, you will have to make an agreement between the subject and the verb. On travaille, easily done. You do not need that agreement. So that's much easier than il travaille. You agree with me? And another sentence, en Belgique, ils parlent le néerlandais, le français et l'allemand. And you say, en Belgique, on parle le néerlandais, le français et l'allemand. And another reason for using the on is that you kind of feel part of what you are saying. As a French learner, you are also a French speaker in a way. So you want to be part of what you're saying. En Belgique, on parle le néerlandais, le français et l'allemand. All right, so we talk about blocking your time, which is you will have approximately 55 minutes to complete this task. And it is very important to break down each step so you are sure to complete everything. The directions state that you have 6 minutes to read the printed material. This includes the topic, the introductions for all three sources, and the text of source number 1. And you're going to read quickly. So make sure you use your 6 minutes wisely. Start with the topic and the introductions because you want to be prepared as possible. want to be as prepared as possible when the audio begins to play. And if you're reading the passage when the audio begins, do not panic. The text will still be there when the audio is over. So priority will be given to the audio if you have used the 6 minutes. So stay with the audio. Make sure you listen to it. Do not panic. Give yourself an extra few minutes to finish listening to that. And then you can go back to the text because, as we said, the text will still be there in front of you. The audio will play twice. You'll be taking notes, but we'll cover that later. And it will take about 10 minutes. This, of course, depends on the length of the audio. Once the audio ends, you have 40 minutes to produce your essay. And in reality, you only have 35 minutes to write because every good writer knows it is smart to have 5 minutes at the end for revisions. So you absolutely must read your essay after you're writing. Don't finish everything and just say, I'm done. Go over it, correct the few mistakes that you probably will see or that you think you can see. Make sure you have accent marks on the words, and in general, review your essay. All right. In the 6 minutes window before the audio, as well as the first few minutes of your 35 minutes block, writing block, be sure to mark up the reading passage. So as you're reading, underline words. You do not have time to go searching in the passage for something you have already read. So underline keywords, important sentences, expressions that you will want to go back to so that you don't have to go back through the whole text. Instead, underline important words, draw arrows to sentences, and make notes in the margin, in English or in French, as you feel comfortable. Remember, those notes are not graded, so they will not count against you, and it doesn't matter how you write them, as long as you will be able to go back and understand what you wrote. All right, so while you're listening to the audio portion, you have to take notes as well. The audio is played twice and only twice. You've got 2 chances to absorb a lot of information. So taking notes is crucial. Numbers and statistics are always difficult to process quickly, but data can help justify your opinion. And you know you will have to cite all 3 sources in your essay. So this is very important to pay attention to what you are listening to here. Take notes. Be focused on identifying the numbers in the audio and write them down. Also, avoid full sentences. Instead, use verbs, nouns, and small pictures. Visualizing your audio in your mind will help you remember anything you do not get down on paper. Every time you do listen in class this year, take notes. Oh, wow. This is an art, and you'll become better and better in each of them. So let's skip that part. So here, trick, extract the various points of view. So as you know, this task is daunting. The best way to tackle it is with a graphic organizer. This will help you keep focus, and stay productive while you're writing. Now that you understand the sources, it is time to put them together with your own views. Most students will begin writing the introduction first, but it is actually easier to save the introduction and conclusion paragraph for later. And again, this will vary from one student to one candidate to the other. But it is advisable here to save your introduction and the conclusion later after you finish with the body of your essay. But again, you could start with your introduction as you feel comfortable. So in this case, if you want to start with the body, organize the citable items you underlined and noted in for or against boxes. In the for or against boxes. Don't write down complete sentences, just key words and phrases. You should have at least 3 citations in each box. And you've just put together 2 of your 3 body paragraphs. So next, write your opinion in the personal view box. Be sure to state your opinion and give at least 3 examples and or supporting details. So as you are as you're reading the text or as you are organizing your essay, getting ready to organize your essay, write down 3 different boxes: the for, against, and the personal view. So what is for, what the thesis in the sources, what is against, and what is your personal view. All right, now that your body paragraphs are outlined, you can think about your introduction and conclusion paragraphs. Both should reflect the same information, introduce the concept, present all views, justify your opinion, and do not forget that the introduction should contain a personal connection to the topic. And now that your body paragraphs are outlined, you can think about your introduction and conclusion, okay? Exactly the same thing we just said. So this is a repetition here. And use transition words. Very, very important. Transition words. It is not uncommon for a student to end the pre-writing phase with the 2 graphics organizers we've just created. However, having words and sentences to connect your writing will help the flow of your response. This is a major element in the grading rubric, so be sure to include them. The following tables do not need to be memorized. Instead, you should pick only a handful of words and consistently use them in everyday language. So again, you do not need to memorize a list of 100 transition words or 50 or even 20. You need but five good transition words should be enough for you. The proctor is looking, the reader of this, your task or your exam will be looking to see if you have transition words in them. And we'll see examples of transition words. Some examples: malgré tout, despite everything; par conséquent, consequently; en conclusion, in conclusion; malgré, in spite; par ailleurs, plutôt que, pour que, pendant que, pourvu que, puisque, c'est pour cette raison que, c'est certainement parce que, il s'agit d'un problème, par contre, cependant, bien que, tandis que, en plus. And again, 5 good transition words will make your essay stand out, as long as you use them where they fit adequately. All right, so let's practice this. Here it says, add a linking word or un connecteur, ajouter un connecteur pour joindre les phrases suivantes en une seule phrase. So add a linking words to the following sentences. The first sentence, pendant l'hiver, il fait froid, en été, il fait chaud. So what transition word can we use here, or what linking word can we use here? What linking word can we use here? Pendant l'hiver, il fait froid, tandis qu'en été, il fait chaud. Or we could say, pendant l'hiver, il fait froid, mais en hiver, il fait chaud. Or, pendant l'hiver, il fait froid, cependant, en été, il fait chaud. Je suis allé au Mexique, Bob m'a donné un billet d'avion gratuit. Je suis allé au Mexique puisque Bob m'a donné un billet d'avion gratuit. Je suis allé au Mexique car Bob m'a donné un billet d'avion gratuit. Third sentence, phrase numéro 3. Le train est utile, l'avion est pratique. Le train est utile, par contre, l'avion est pratique. Phrase numéro 4. La voiture coûte cher, elle vous permet de partir quand vous voulez. La voiture coûte cher, cependant, elle vous permet de partir quand vous voulez. Il faut bien faire sa valise, phrase numéro 5. Vous n'aurez pas de problème avec vos bagages lorsque vous voyagez. Il faut bien faire la valise pour que vous n'ayez pas de problème avec vos bagages lorsque vous voyagez. And here we go from the futures to the subjunctive. All right. It might be counterintuitive to skip a vocabulary word like l'article, l'image. However, using the phrase source number 1 allows the grader to quickly access what sources you have cited in your response. And in the following table, you will find a vocabulary to help you integrate your citation into your responses. So, for example, you will say, en ce qui concerne l'auteur de source numéro 3. L'auteur de source 1 attire notre attention sur. L'auteur de source 2 nous rappelle que. L'auteur de source 3 nous signale que. Donc voilà, en quelque sorte, here are some examples of how you will introduce the different sources. All right, so before we go to examples, look at examples and see what we think are great examples of. So let's go back and recap what we just said. So again, it is very important to know the structure. Les 5 est-ce que à prendre en considération the 5 did I of that you will have to take in consideration before or for your essay. Did I or do I know the structure of the task? Did I respect the time given to me? Did I read and understand the different sources? Did I cite the 3 sources in my essay? And did I respect the rules of writing? Meaning, do I have structure? Is my writing structured? Did I include basic structures? Did I include advanced structures? Did I include connectors? Did I include linking words or transition words? So this is very important. And now let's take a look at an example of a couple of essays. Stop sharing my screen and I will share it again. Just to go back to what I'm trying to say. All right, so here, so this is an example of an essay that deserves a 5 or 4. Les accidents de voiture sont un problème de nos jours. Chaque jour, il y a beaucoup de morts dans le monde. Une solution pour tenter de répondre à cette crise, cette crise, serait d'interdire la conduite aux seniors. Cependant, est-il nécessaire de faire cela? So here in the introduction, without us reading, we haven't read the topic of this task, but we could understand that they're asking if it's necessary to prevent seniors from driving. And in this introduction, we understand exactly what the candidate wants to say or what the candidate is talking about. And it can make us, you want to show the reader that you understand the topic, and then you can walk him through the topic within your essay. All right. La première constatation qui s'impose, c'est que la majorité d'accidents sont causés ou est causée par les jeunes et les adultes, pas par les seniors. Comme il est mentionné dans la source numéro 1, so here, the candidate introduces the first source. Les seniors ont au moins d'accidents que les autres. Une raison est l'expérience. Aussi qu'une personne aura reçu un permis, elle pourra conduire. Par conséquent, si quelqu'un commence à conduire quand il est jeune, par conséquent, aussitôt que, so as we see here, the writing is not perfect, but we see our linking words, our transition words, aussitôt qu'une personne aura vécu, aura reçu. Par conséquent, si quelqu'un commence à conduire quand il est jeune, il aura plus de temps pour pratiquer. Selon le tableau, again, another transition word, les gens qui, and the introduction of the second source, ont 65 ans ou plus ou moins titulaires d'un permis de conduire seulement, des titulaires d'un permis. Il est bien connu que les seniors ne conduisaient en téléphonant ou faisant des textos. Excellent transition. Une grande cause d'accident de plus, les seniors ne boivent pas l'alcool comme les jeunes le boivent. En deuxième lieu, another transition, le gouvernement ne serait pas permis de dire à tous les seniors qu'ils ne peuvent pas conduire. C'est le droit d'un individu de décider si une personne devrait conduire. Par exemple, details, examples, personal examples, very important. Ma grand-mère qui a 90 ans conduit tous les jours parce qu'elle a bonne santé, parce que support your detail, support your example with details. Après avoir écouté la source numéro 3, excellent, citing the third source, je me suis rendu compte que beaucoup de seniors ont des maladies. Cependant, il n'est pas juste d'interdire tous les seniors. Il est important que tout le monde ait l'opportunité de conduire à tous les âges. C'est la discrimination d'interdire les seniors. Si les Juifs n'avaient pas été permis de conduire, tout le monde aurait détesté cette loi. Ce n'est pas différent avec l'âge de quelqu'un. Chaque citoyen devrait avoir les mêmes droits. Supporting details. Tout compte faire. Excellent transition for your conclusion. Tout compte faire. In summary, after all consideration, il ne faut pas qu'on interdise aux gens âgés de conduire. Les accidents ne sont pas à cause d'eux. Une question à se poser la suivante. Devrait-on interdire quelque chose seulement à cause de son âge? Supporting, rephrasing everything that we said in the body of the essay, but in few words, keywords, different words. So that essay deserves a 5 at least. We saw that it has advanced structures, excellent transition words, good supporting details, all 3 sources mentioned, an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Now let's look at an essay that deserves a 3. Aujourd'hui, les voitures sont une grande partie de la vie quotidienne. Malheureusement, les voitures posent beaucoup de dangers. Quand une personne devient plus vieille, son aptitude de conduire peut diminuer et pose d'ailleurs de danger pour lui et les autres, alors il faut interdire la conduite aux seniors. So this is another good essay. In the first one, we saw the writer or the candidate taking side against the fact that we should discriminate seniors and prevent them from driving. And here it is saying, this candidate is saying seniors should not be allowed to drive. En premier, l'habileté de conduite diminue avec l'âge. So this is more than 3 actually. L'habileté de conduite diminue avec l'âge. So, selon l'audio, la plupart des seniors ont des troubles cognitifs ou les maladies qui peuvent blesser ces habiletés. Si personne ne peut pas faire attention pendant qu'il conduit, il ne doit pas conduire. Les seniors avec des troubles cognitifs sont dangereux pour la société quand ils conduisent parce qu'ils contribuent aux accidents. Alors, il faut interdire la conduite aux seniors qui posent des problèmes. En deuxième lieu, les seniors veulent conduire d'après le graphique. So, citing the second source, beaucoup de personnes, 65 ans en plus, continuent à conduire. Les seniors conduisent, mais plusieurs seniors n'ont pas l'habilité à conduire. Alors, source numéro 1, mentioning the source but could be said differently, selon la source numéro 1, ou la source numéro 1 suggère un examen de conduite après un certain âge. La source numéro 1, quelques seniors ont l'attitude de conduire pendant que les autres ne peuvent pas conduire. Alors, je propose un examen ou un système pour déterminer les personnes qui peuvent conduire après un certain âge. Les seniors ont la bonne santé et l'habileté de conduire, peuvent conduire, mais nous devons interdire aux autres de conduire pour protéger la sécurité des personnes dans la communauté. That's it. Excellent. Supporting details. L'habileté de conduite diminue quand une personne devient plus âgée. So here we are landing. So we are landing and we are recapping. We are summarizing all that was said. Quand une personne conduit selon l'aptitude, il y a des dangers pour cette personne et les autres dans les rues. Alors, il faut interdire la conduite aux seniors qui n'ont pas l'habileté. Un examen de conduite après un certain âge est un moyen efficace de l'interdire. Another good word. And now let's read the third one. La sélection discute le problème aux seniors conduits. 3 sélections à différentes opinions avec un essai, une table et un interview. Premièrement, so here we see from the get-go that the introduction is not very clear and many mistakes. This is what we call Tarzan talk. So the verbs are not conjugated properly and the sentences are not structured properly. Subject, verb, predicate. All right, so il faut que la sélection discute et aussi il doit un examen de santé de 70 ans qui conduisent encore, n'est-elle pas? So again, a lot of thousand talk in this essay and that will certainly, we will look at the scores. So example, the first one, example of score 4. This is an example of a good performance in presentational writing. There's evidence of generally effective treatment of the topic. It is clear that the student understands the sources, viewpoint, and summarizes content from all 3 sources in support of the essay. However, there is only limited integration of the sources content. In the second paragraph, for example, the student summarized information drawn from the reading passage to show how age and driving experience are related to number of accidents. The student also summarizes some content from the graph and the audio recording. The student's own viewpoint based on the 3 sources is presented and defended. Il est important que tout le monde ait l'opportunité de conduire. There are, however, some inaccuracies and errors. Il ne faut pas interdire les gens âgés de conduire. The persuasive argument is developed with coherence and detail. The essay is well organized and includes an introduction, 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion, and a number of transitional elements and cohesive devices. Cependant, par conséquent, de plus, en deuxième lieu, tout compte fait, the student uses varied and appropriate vocabulary and idiomatic language. Pour tenter de répondre, la première constatation qui s'impose, une question à se poser est la suivante. Even though there are few errors overall, the essay demonstrates accuracy and a variety in grammar, syntax, and usage. The student uses a variety of tenses and verb forms. Present tense, ne boivent pas. Future tense, il y aura. Subjunctif, il est important que tout le monde ait. Past infinitive, après avoir écouté. Past participle en téléphonant. Future perfect, aussitôt qu'une personne aura reçu. And the essay develops paragraph-length discourse with a variety of simple, compound, and complex sentences. It is fully understandable. There are occasional errors and inaccuracies, but they do not impede comprehensibility. Au moins titulaire d'un permis, mistakes. So, devrait-on interdire quelque chose à cause de son âge? So, this is a 4. And the second essay is given a 3. And this is an example of a fair and performance in presentational writing and so on. And the third essay, we say it was thousand talk. This essay is an example of weak performance in presentation writing. The student mentioned the 3 sources, of course, but it is not enough. There is evidence of a low degree of comprehension of the sources, viewpoints, and the information included is limited or inaccurate. Il ne pense pas que les signaux sont dangereux. Le tableau démontre le pourcentage, lots of mistakes. The content of the sources only summarize and do not support the essay. The essay merely suggests the student's own viewpoint and topic, and on persuasive argument somewhat incoherently in the last paragraph. So again, you can go over all this and see what we are looking for in a good essay, which is close to an excellent one, or an average essay, and what we do not want to see in an essay. It is not enough to mention to the 3 sources. You have to cite them appropriately as you are writing to support and to fit in your essay rather than just say source number 1, source number 2. It is not enough to mention them to get all the points that you should deserve. Okay, so that will conclude this presentation on persuasive essay. And the QR code goes back to those different essays are just shared with you, and you can go back and review them. And again, you can go back and review the entire presentation. And if you do have any question, feel free to contact either myself or my assistant, Michelle. Merci beaucoup. I hope this was informational, this was helpful, and you will be getting ready for the May 20th, May 21st, for
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello. We will start shortly. D'accord. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. Welcome to the AP French CRAM session number 3, dealing with the conversation task. My name is Ha-Seung Jun, and I am the AP French TA at Fiveable, and I'll be leading the CRAM session today. Okay, so just a heads up, this stream is being recorded and might appear on our website, YouTube, and other public channels. So if you want to ask a question, your name will appear on the screen. So please change your name if you want to avoid this. And we have a short video from our CEO, Amanda. Oh no, I don't think the sound's going through. Just a second.
Social media on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Use the hashtags YesWeCram and with Fiveable and tag at Think Fiveable. So one person will win. What up, AP students? Amanda here. Social media on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Use the hashtags yes.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Here from Fiveable, we are literally giving away $100 to pay for your AP exams to like 50 different students. How do you win? Easy. You just got to post about the AP experience on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. Use the hashtags YesWeCram and with Fiveable and tag at Think Fiveable. So one person will win every single day, and this is how you can win. It is going to be a group of students who actually judge the winner. They will pick the winners, and this is how they're going to choose. It has to capture the AP experience. Do they look at that post and think like, that's 100% what this feels like? Is it creative? Is it funny? Does it have a really awesome song in it or a really good use of some sort of meme? Anything? Do we see creativity and engagement? How many likes do you have? That literally is going to help you win. The more likes, the more likely you are to win. And then finally, does it incorporate Fiveable? Is it in the caption, what you're wearing, in something that you're doing? How have you incorporated Fiveable into it? So this is how you can win. A couple of quick notes. Make sure you follow Think Fiveable so that we can DM you if you've won. You can post as many times as you want. You can post today, tomorrow, every day, as many times during the day as you want, but you can only win once, so keep that in mind. And finally, some of our best social interns came from this contest last year. So if you're really awesome at social media and you're looking for an internship, show us what you've got because we want to hire you. So I can't wait to see your posts. See you on the flip side. Good luck on your exams. Talk to you later.
Okay, so that was a message from Amanda, and I would highly encourage you to take part of this so you can get a feel of everything that Fiveable does. Okay,
what
so
up, AP students?
sorry.
Here from Fiveable. What up, AP students?
Okay, so I think we should start with our French now. So in this stream, we're gonna go over. We're first gonna go over the task and see how the task is set up. Now go over the directions that College Board provides you with when you have to do this task. We'll go over the scoring guidelines, and I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to do the task. And then we'll also introduce examples, and we'll look at some useful phrases to use during the conversation task. We'll also go over the process of what you should think when you're going over this task. And lastly, we'll practice and then analyze student samples provided by College Board. Okay, so the task overview is basically you get 1 minute to read the directions, and then you get, I think, another minute to go over your your topic, and the simulated conversation is on. And then you get 20 seconds 5 times to answer or reply to and engage in the conversation that the task is about. And one really important thing is that when we're going over the directions are always going to be the same. What you can see right here on this slide, these directions are going to be same for every single AP exam unless College Board decides to change these, which means that it might be a good idea to memorize it. So you can use that 1 minute given to look over the topic instead, and then get yourself ready for the conversation. And so if you see here, the directions aren't that hard to read or like memorize. And so the directions say you have 1 minute to read the directions for this task. And I would highly recommend you to instead use this 1 minute to look over your topic. Again, you do have another minute, but having 2 minutes is to prepare yourself. It's far better than having just 1 minute that they provide you with. And so the directions say you will participate in a conversation. First, you will have 1 minute to read a preview of the conversation, including an outline of each turn in the conversation. Afterward, the conversation will begin, following the outline. Each time it is your turn to speak, you will have 20 seconds to record your response. You should participate in the conversation as fully and appropriately as possible. You will now begin this task. So really, the directions don't have that much. So I would recommend you to just indulge in it right away and just go into your topic and get yourself ready for the conversation. And on the other side, it's the French version, but they're all the same. So just memorize what you need to do, and then I think you'll be fine. Okay, so now I have the exam guidelines with you. This is the scoring guideline and how you score the AP exam and the speaking portion. So a 5 is a strong performance in interpersonal speaking. It means that you're maintaining the exchange with a series of response that is clearly appropriate within the context of the task. And then also that means that you provide required information. For example, responses to questions, statement in support of opinion with frequent elaboration. Your response is fully understandable. With ease and clarity of expression, occasional errors do not impede comprehensibility. It is varied and appropriate grammar and with grammar and vocabulary and idiomatic language. The accuracy and variety in grammar, syntax, and uses with few errors. Most consistent use of register appropriate for the conversation. Pronunciation, intonation, and pacing make the response comprehensible. Errors do not impede comprehensibility. Clarification or self-correction, if present, improves comprehensibility. So I bolded some of these adverbs here because if you go to the next slide, which is the exam or scoring guidelines for 4, it's almost exactly the same for all the scoring guidelines, except for these few adverbs. So in this, it says it's generally appropriate instead of for 5, which is clearly appropriate. For 5, it's frequent elaboration. For 4, it's some elaboration. And then on 5, it's fully understandable, while for 4, it's fully understandable, but it does have some errors. And for 5, it's occasional errors. And it's varied and appropriate vocabulary for a 5. And for 4, it's only varied and generally appropriate. So if you can see here, the exam guidelines for a 5 and a 4 are almost the same, except for a few small little adverbs. So that means that you just need to hit exactly what College Board wants from you. The exam scores are mostly reflected on how well you check off the stuff you need to do. And so basically, if you want to get a 5, you need to clearly be appropriate with your context, and you have to provide frequent elaboration, fully understandable, occasional errors only, varied and appropriate, and mostly consistent use of register appropriate. And yeah, so 4 is almost exactly the same, which means that in order to get a 5, you need to be more clear, more specific, more appropriate, and more on the spot with your task. And so that's the same for a 3, a 2, or 1 or an unacceptable or no response doesn't have any scoring guidelines. But as you can see, these adverbs are the only thing that distinguish you from a 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. So it is always important to exactly know what you're doing and make your response very clear and precise and follow the directions, which is the most important thing. Okay, so now we're going to go over a little tips and tricks. So the number one tip is always talk for the full 20 seconds. It's always better to go over than under, and awkward silences are not very good when it comes to scoring your task. So if you run out of something, it's better to still say something rather than just sit there and stay silent. It's also important to stay on topic. So if the topic is on, I guess, environment and how you're going to preserve the environment, it's really crucial to stay on that topic instead of going off topic and talking about like how your school is not going well. Like, no, it's always great to stay on topic and provide them the information that they want from you. And as you see, there is a speaking guideline, and you need to follow the directions exactly. So if it says to ask for more information, you should always ask for more information. And if it says to ask a question, you need to ask a question. Also, listen carefully. When you're panicking, it's really hard to understand. And so it's always nice to just calm down, listen carefully, and you'll be able to do it. So don't worry. And also, as I said before, try to start off with what the directions tell you to do and stay on topic. Okay, this is a follow-up to what I previously said, which is to distinguish where you need to agree, disagree, answer, or question something. This is for conversational flow, so the conversation makes sense, which means that if it says on the conversation guideline to ask a question and you don't ask a question, well, the other speaking counterpart, which is the recorded version, will answer a question you should have asked, which will not make any sense and therefore would not be able to give you a 5. Or it says to disagree and you accidentally agree. Well, the person is going to take in your disagreement and process that through and say, oh, well, I'm sorry that you disagree. Maybe we could do something else. That's what they're going to say. And if you agree there, the conversation wouldn't make sense. So this would be really important. Also, make sure to choose between tu and vous, and choose one and stick to it. If it, first of all, it should be very appropriate. Like the use of the register should be very appropriate. So if you're talking to someone you're very familiar with, for example, friends or classmates, siblings, you should use tu. But if you're talking to a teacher or someone you're not very familiar with, you should always use vous. And so appropriate should be always important. But if you accidentally use the other one, it is better to sometimes stick with it instead, unless it's very obvious that you should have used vous. For example, if it's like a classmate you don't know well and you accidentally use vous instead of tu, you can stick with vous. But if it's a teacher, you should use vous. But if you use tu, it is better to switch in the middle, even though for the last 2 responses you use vous, use tu. It is better to use vous. And also, before you start, it is also good and important to write down the vocabulary related to your topic so you can use it during your conversation. Sometimes, even though you don't know what to say, having the vocabulary in front of you can help you formulate a sentence as quickly as you can. So I would always recommend writing vocabulary, phrases, or verbs or anything down before you start speaking when you have 1 minute to read the topic and write down what you know. Okay, so this is an example. And the theme is les défis mondiaux. So already you should think about what kind of défi it is. Is it about environment? Is it about hunger? Is it about forest fires? Or is it you should think of what the challenges of the world is. So if you think about it, you should already be writing down some vocabulary that you know are associated to challenges of the world. And then it says, vous aurez 1 minute pour lire l'introduction, which means that you should, while reading it, you should read carefully and then write down what you should say. Also, you should have used the other minute when you're supposed to read the directions. Okay, and then, so, in this example, it's une introduction. C'est une conversation avec Thomas, un camarade de classe. Vous participez à cette conversation parce que Thomas sollicite votre aide pour l'organisation d'un événement. Alors, Thomas, il vous téléphone et vous pose une question. Vous répondez à la question et en donnant des détails. Thomas, il explique la raison de son appel et pose une question. Vous exprimez votre intérêt et demandez des précisions. Thomas, il demande des suggestions. Vous faites des suggestions. Thomas, il pose une question. Vous répondez à la question. Thomas, il prend rendez-vous et pose une question. Vous répondez à la question et terminez la conversation. So this is the conversational guideline that they're giving you, and you should make sure you always follow what they're giving you. So when it says répondez à la question en donnant des détails, make sure you answer the question and also give some detail. When it says exprimez votre intérêt et demandez des précisions, you should make sure that you have to ask for precisions, and you also have to express that you really want to take part of whatever he is asking you to take part of. Okay, so some phrases that are useful, helpful when you're going over this. There is a Quizlet at the end, a QR code and a tiny URL where you can access it. But they're on here to show you that there are a lot of things that you can use as sentence starters or reactions. For example, d'accord, okay, or je pense que oui, I think so. Quel malheur, what misfortune. And so these are really helpful when you're going through your conversation and you don't know what to say or you don't know what to start with. Just start with phrases that express your reaction. When it says to, I guess, express your interest in what Thomas is offering you, then you should use something like c'est intéressant. And then when it's asked you to ask for precision, you can say raconte-moi s'il vous plaît, qu'est-ce que tu vas faire, or cet événement c'est quoi de salt. So yeah, just using these phrases as a conversation starter or a sentence starter can be really helpful when you're going through the conversation task. So there are some more here. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'd really recommend you going over these phrases just in case they can come in handy, especially when you really don't know what to say, or at the end when you have to terminate the conversation but you don't know what else to say, which can be a problem sometimes. So yeah, here is the Quizlet link. I also attached a tiny URL link, tinyurl.com/5able FR simconvo, SIMCONVO. And there's a QR code here if you would rather use that. Okay, so when you use the when you see the conversation guidelines, this is the process that should go through your mind. when you should have about approximately 2 minutes to prepare, since you should memorize the directions. And so first, have a greeting in mind. Whatever the topic, you always will have to greet the other person and show interest in joining what they are doing. So try to have in mind what you're going to say, how you're going to show interest, what kind of words you want to use. Or it's sometimes nice to just write out the full greeting in your mind, even though it's not going to fit all the 20 seconds. Even having maybe 2 sentences could really help keep it going until the full 20 seconds. Yeah, so I almost have this first response written out with a few interchangeable words, just in case what you wrote doesn't really fit the context. And then you should write down all the vocab words related to your topic even before the conversation starts. For example, if the prompt is about a survey concerning sport activities at school, you should brainstorm words like pep rallies, football, homecoming, and tryouts. Now, and then you should know when to agree, disagree, question or answer, etc., which we already went over. And then you should follow the outline and make sure to do what it says. For example, if it says demander, then ask a question. If it says explainer, then explain yourself. And then imagine what would be said with a topic in mind and how you would respond. For example, this example that I showed you says that you're going to help him organize an event. Well, have in mind how he might ask, Thomas might ask, well, how do you think we should recruit people? Then have in mind what you could say as an idea, and also have in mind what he might say. And even though it doesn't say, it has like a guideline, and just have in mind what is going to be said and what you're going to say, and imagine how that topic will relate to what you should prepare yourself for. And lastly, don't panic. If you mess up, correct yourself and continue speaking. You're gonna do great, so don't panic. Panic can only make things worse. Just have confidence in yourself. And sometimes we aren't really sure what we're doing and we aren't ready, but pretend that you are ready. That will help you definitely, and you will do great, because I know you will. So do not panic, and if you mess up by accident, you can still correct yourself and continue speaking. I will show you some student samples later, and if you see, a lot of people mess up, but they still get a 5. So don't panic at all. It's gonna be great, and you're gonna do awesome. So we're gonna practice here. Okay, we're going to take out a piece of paper and take notes while the given time. Pretend this is the actual exam and give yourself a little practice. I'm going to turn this on, and it's basically going to be the guide from College Board who tells you that you have like 1 minute to read the directions. And so pretend this is the actual direction, and try to practice and try to respond to what Thomas is saying for practice. And that should really prepare yourself for the exam, because practicing is always better than not practicing. Okay, so here we go.
You have 1 minute to read the directions for this task.
Vous aurez 1 minute pour lire les instructions de cette tâche.
You have 1
Oh,
minute to
sorry.
read the directions
I thought it
for
was
this
going on,
task.
but I guess.
Vous aurez 1 minute pour lire les instructions de cette tâche.
You will now begin this task.
Vous allez maintenant commencer cette tâche.
You have 1 minute to read the preview.
Vous aurez 1 minute pour lire l'introduction.
Now the conversation will begin. Press the pause button now to resume the recording.
Maintenant, appuyez sur pause pour continuer votre enregistrement et accomplir cette tâche.
Salut, c'est Thomas. Ça fait longtemps qu'on ne s'est pas parlé. Comment ça va? Quoi de neuf? C'est sympa d'avoir de tes nouvelles. Dis, j'ai quelque chose à te demander. On aimerait organiser un événement pour la journée de l'environnement à l'école dans un mois. Veux-tu nous aider? Je ne sais pas encore. Il y a tellement de possibilités, mais il ne reste qu'un mois pour la planification. As-tu des idées pour sensibiliser les élèves aux questions écologiques? Tu sais qu'aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de façons différentes de faire de la publicité pour un tel événement. Qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire pour attirer nos camarades de classe?
Oh, I don't know why that was turned off.
T'as vraiment de bonnes idées. Écoute, on se réunit vendredi prochain pour en discuter. J'espère que tu es libre. Je peux compter sur toi?
The conversation has ended. Press the pause button now to pause the recording.
C'est la fin de la conversation. Maintenant, appuyez sur pause pour mettre en pause votre enregistrement.
Okay, yeah, so that was it. I'm very sorry that in the middle, the audio suddenly paused. I have no idea why that happened. I'm extremely sorry that it probably felt more than 20 seconds. I am very sorry about that. Yeah, so if you listen to what Thomas said, the first one was Thomas greets the student and notes that they have not spoken recently. He asks how the student is and what is new in the student's life. So this is what Thomas said, and you should have said like, yeah, I am. Well, nothing's like new in my life, or you could say like, yeah, a lot of new things happened. And then for number 2, Toma explains the reason for his telephone call to see if the student is interested in helping with the organization of a school event the next month for Environment Day. So you should have said something like, yeah, I'd be interested in helping you, and you should have asked for precision. Third one says that Toma notes that there are many ways to help, but that they only have 1 month to plan the event. He asks whether the student has any ideas for how to raise student awareness for ecological questions. And so you should have provided your own ideas, opinions on it. And quick note is that you don't really have to say what you actually think. If you can't think of any words to say what you actually think, you can always make up a false identity of yourself and go with what you, I guess, don't really, if there is anything, if you don't believe in anything or something like that, you can always make up a false identity yourself. Or even if you can't really if you can't think of any words that you would like to use to agree with something, and you can only think of words to disagree, it's totally fine to not go with, I guess, your full identity if you possibly can't think of anything else, because this is on a time constraint, so it's best to go as quickly as you can with whatever you have. And then Thomas notes that there are many ways to publicize the event. He asks the student that what they should do to get other classmates interested. So this is like a recruiting question. You can say anything like put up flyers, put it on social media. Yeah, anything like that. Ask to friends, anything like that would be fine. And then number 5, Thomas suggests that the student meet with interested classmates the next Friday to discuss the event and ask if he can count on the students to join them. And here you could just say, yeah, you can definitely count on me. I'll see you then. Thank you for asking me. Anything like that. So now we have student sample 3A. This is the student sample, and we're gonna see how the student responded to this conversation task.
Student sample 3A.
Salut, c'est Thomas. Ça fait longtemps qu'on ne s'est pas parlé. Comment ça va? Quoi de neuf?
Bonjour Thomas, ça va très bien. Je ne t'ai vu depuis longtemps. On est ensemble dans la classe, mais je ne te parle jamais. Alors avec moi, il n'y a rien de nouveau vraiment. Je fais beaucoup de devoirs, j'ai beaucoup de travail, donc je n'ai pas besoin. Non, alors je n'ai pas beaucoup de temps pour faire beaucoup de choses, mais je nage, je parle avec ma famille.
C'est sympa d'avoir de tes nouvelles. Dis, j'ai quelque chose à te demander. On aimerait organiser un événement pour la journée de l'environnement à l'école dans un mois. Veux-tu nous aider?
Oui, j'aimerais bien vous aider. J'adore l'environnement, j'adore le jour de la Terre et je pense que c'est très important de aider les gens à comprendre que la Terre est en danger. Mais j'aimerais savoir quand est le jour que tu veux faire cet événement, seulement parce que j'ai beaucoup à faire, mais
Je ne sais pas encore. Il y a tellement de possibilités, mais il ne reste qu'un mois pour la planification. As-tu des idées pour sensibiliser les élèves aux questions écologiques?
oui, je pense qu'on peut faire une présentation devant tout l'école et les dire de le réchauffement global et la serre de la couche d'ozone et on peut aussi faire des projets pour aider la Terre. Alors peut-être on peut faire.
Tu sais qu'aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de façons différentes de faire de la publicité pour un tel événement. Qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire pour attirer nos camarades de classe?
Je pense que si on les inspire, on peut faire un grand email, l'envoyer à toute l'école pour les inviter à savoir sur la journée de la Terre et sur notre projet. Et aussi, on peut envoyer des lettres et peut-être aussi, si on veut faire beaucoup d'advertisements, on peut.
T'as vraiment de bonnes idées. Écoute, on se réunit vendredi prochain pour en discuter. J'espère que tu es libre. Je peux compter sur toi?
Oui, tu peux compter sur moi. Je veux bien participer dans cet événement. J'adore la Terre, comme j'ai déjà dit, et je fais beaucoup de projets pour l'aider. Il faut aussi sauver de l'eau et ne gaspiller l'énergie ni le lit. Donc, oui, j'aimerais bien parler avec.
End of student sample 3A.
Okay, so as you can see, the student responded as they should have to the speaking guideline. So some strength that we could identify from this student sample is that they use all the time allowed. They also have a lot of information packed in. And so they use all their ideas and they try to incorporate all that they want to say into that short 20-second period, which again may seem long sometimes when you don't have anything to say, but this person had a lot packed in. They follow the directions of the speaking guideline or the conversation guideline. They have a strong end to the conversation. This can be kind of hard sometimes because it just says to say goodbye and end the conversation, which can be very hard, but they have a really strong end to the conversation, which is good. They also use a large spectrum of vocabulary related to the environment and the climate. This is really important because if you have a lot of ideas but you don't really have any vocabulary with you, it can be hard to answer the question or have a solid response in your conversation. But not everything is perfect. There are some weaknesses. So there are a lot of repetition of what they want to say or any ideas. Sometimes does not distinguish vous and tu. This was maybe 2 times or once. Does have some minor grammar issues, and sometimes lacks coherence. And information is not stated clearly. But as you can tell, it's a pretty strong performance. And I would like you to guess what score the student received. So I am going to I have a poll here, and I would like you to guess on the poll what the student received, what score the student received. Okay. And okay, so wait for a minute. Okay, and I will close the poll now. Okay, so the score that this student received is a 5. And these are from the judges' comments after the exam was over. So this is an example of strong performance in interpersonal speaking. The response maintains the exchange with a series of responses that is clearly appropriate within the context of the task. For example, they say, oui, j'aimerais bien vous aider. Je pense qu'on peut faire une présentation. Je veux bien participer dans cet événement. It provides required information with frequent elaboration. For example, they say, je ne t'ai vu depuis longtemps. On est ensemble dans la classe, mais je te parle jamais. Alors, avec moi, il n'y a rien de nouveau vraiment. Je fais beaucoup de devoirs, j'ai beaucoup de travail, donc je n'ai pas besoin. Alors, je n'ai pas beaucoup de temps pour faire beaucoup de choses. Mais je nage, je parle avec ma famille, ou j'aimerais bien vous aider. Je pense qu'on peut faire une présentation. So it provides the required information. The response is fully understandable, with ease and clarity of expression. Occasional errors do not impede comprehensibility. For example, when the student says quand est le jour de, or les dires de le réchauffement global et la serre de la cape. These do have like an error slightly. Quand est le jour is not a good expression to ask when is it. And avertissement, ni le ni is not a good expression either. Vocabulary and idiomatic expressions are varied and appropriate. For example, le réchauffement global, la couche d'ozone, la terre gaspillée, these are appropriate for the topic. There is an accuracy and variety in grammar, syntax, and usage. When the student says, mais je peux, je ne te parle jamais, il n'y a rien de nouveau, aider les gens à comprendre que la Terre est en danger, j'ai beaucoup à faire, comme j'ai déjà dit. These are appropriate uses and they are accurate uses of grammar. The response demonstrates a consistent use of register that is appropriate for the conversation. It sometimes uses vous, but it mostly uses tu, which is appropriate for this because since they're classmates. Pronunciation, intonation, and pacing make the response comprehensible, and errors do not impede comprehensibility. What Judge says was événement. The student pronounced it as événement without an accent, but it was still comprehensible, which is why it didn't cause any it did not cause any incomprehensible material. And self-correction improves comprehensibility. So now we're going to go over student sample 3B.
Student sample 3B.
Salut, c'est Thomas. Ça fait longtemps qu'on ne s'est pas parlé. Comment ça va? Quoi de neuf?
Salut Thomas, je suis bien, ça va bien. Et toi? Pourquoi tu m'as téléphoné? Est-ce qu'il y a un problème? Oui. Est-ce qu'il y a besoin de me parler?
C'est sympa d'avoir de tes nouvelles. Dis, j'ai quelque chose à te demander. On aimerait organiser un événement pour la journée de l'environnement à l'école dans un mois. Veux-tu nous aider?
Oui, c'est très intéressant. Oui, je peux t'aider. est-ce que c'est l'événement avec un club ou où est l'événement à l'école ou des autres classes? Quel est le sujet?
Je ne sais pas encore. Il y a tellement de possibilités, mais il ne reste qu'un mois pour la planification. As-tu des idées pour sensibiliser les élèves aux questions écologiques?
Écologique. Oui, il y a beaucoup de suggestions que je peux donner. Tu peux faire les papiers pour l'avertissement ou
Tu sais qu'aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de façons différentes de faire de la publicité pour un tel événement. Qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire pour attirer nos camarades de classe?
je pense que tu dois demander à les professeurs si les professeurs peuvent donner les crédits supplémentaires à leurs étudiants pour l'attendance de votre événement. Si l'événement est éducationnel.
T'as vraiment de bonnes idées. Écoute, on se réunit vendredi prochain pour en discuter. J'espère que tu es libre. Je peux compter sur toi?
Oui, tu peux. S'il y a des autres questions ou des autres demandes, questions ou problèmes, laissez-moi savoir. Oui.
End of student sample 3B.
Okay, so as you can tell, this wasn't as strong as the first sample, but it did have some strengths. So it asks for precision when directed to do so. It does use a vocabulary. Ideas about extra credit is used. Does try to use up all the time allotted, though they stop for a while and then realize they didn't use enough time and then try to fit in some few more sentences. And it was somewhat appropriate context. But again, this also has some weaknesses. It was a weak greeting. It was not very strong. It did not tell Toma what was new in their lives. It did not really follow the directions sometimes, which is crucial to getting a 5. And it perceived a stupid phone call, which was actually true. So that should be not here. Does not have much information. Not very much ideas, though it has like the extra credit ideas. It didn't have much ideas about how to advertise this. It uses a lot of and which is not great when you're using a conversation. Or if you're indulging in a conversation, usually you would not use a lot of or So it was not very good. And also, lastly, there's no strong end to the conversation. It just said like, you can. And there weren't really like anything specific enough. And it was very hesitant as well, which is not good when you're in a conversation. And so I would like you to guess again what this student received as a score. Okay, I'll wait for some responses. Okay, and I'll close this poll. Okay, so this student received a 3, which is a fair performance. This is an example of fair performance in interpersonal speaking. The response maintains the exchange with a series of responses that is somewhat appropriate within the context of the task. For example, it says, well, ça va bien et toi? Où est l'événement? It provides most required information. Il y a beaucoup de suggestions à que je peux donner. Tu peux. The response is generally understandable with errors that may impede comprehensibility. Est-ce qu'il y a besoin à me parler? Je peux te aider, which has some grammatical errors. The vocabulary is appropriate but basic. L'événement, l'école, place, avertissement, la tendance. Place is a plaza in French, so that clearly shows the weakness in vocabulary here. The response demonstrates some control of grammar, syntax, and uses. C'est très intéressant, tu peux faire. Je pense que tu dois demander si les professeurs peuvent donner leurs étudiants. Which has some control but not full control over it. Pronunciation, intonation, and pacing make the response generally comprehensible, but errors occasionally impede comprehensibility. For example, crédit is not extra credit, should not be called crédit, should be called points supplémentaires. And self-correction sometimes improves comprehensibility. For example, s'il y a des autres questions ou des autres demandes, questions ou problèmes, they try to fix that loss by saying problème instead. So this is an example of 3. It is not as strong as the first one, which gained a 5, but this is a fair performance. So now we have student sample 3C.
Student sample 3C.
Salut, c'est Thomas. Ça fait longtemps qu'on ne s'est pas parlé. Comment ça va? Quoi de neuf?
Ça va, je suis très bon. Je fais plus d'activités en école. Tu es bon. Tu es bon.
C'est sympa d'avoir de tes nouvelles. Dis, j'ai quelque chose à te demander. On aimerait organiser un événement pour la journée de l'environnement à l'école dans 1 mois. Veux-tu nous aider?
Oh oui, c'est une bonne idée. Je suis très intéressant. C'est une bonne idée pour tester l'environnement. Quoi est les détails?
Je ne sais pas encore. Il y a tellement de possibilités, mais il ne reste qu'1 mois pour la planification. As-tu des idées pour sensibiliser les élèves aux questions écologiques?
Il y a... j'ai plus de sujets pour ton événement. Il y a beaucoup de dédications que...
Tu sais qu'aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de façons différentes de faire de la publicité pour un tel événement. Qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire pour attirer nos camarades de classe?
C'est une bonne idée. Le caméra est et c'est important pour communiquer les problèmes.
T'as vraiment de bonnes idées. Écoute, on se réunit vendredi prochain pour en discuter. J'espère que tu es libre. Je peux compter sur toi?
Oui, je très intéressant avec ton idée et je parler avec toi.
End of student sample 3C.
Okay, so as you can tell, this was not as strong as the first one. And well, it did have some strengths. So there's an attempt to follow the directions, even though for some reason, they were not able to fully elaborate on what they wanted to say. They try to fill in all the time, so there's no awkward silence. However, if you take out all the ums and uhs, you will end up with maybe like a second sentence, which is not great when you have to fill up almost 20. It does attempt to provide ideas, but again, based on French speaking ability, they were not able to fully elaborate on their ideas. So there are a lot of weaknesses too. A lot of use of us and ums, which is not great, but I guess since they were trying to fill up all the time, it was noteworthy. It's hard to comprehend what they're trying to say. There are a lot of grammar issues. Little vocabulary is used, so they're very basic words that all fourth graders would be able to use in France. Repetition of simple vocabulary does not really stay in context. Sometimes they don't really understand what Thomas is asking them, and does not provide much ideas, which again might be due to short vocabulary. So now I would like you to guess what score the student received. I will open the poll. Now wait a little. Okay, now close the poll. Oh, sorry, grammar is not going to delete. I forgot one. And the score the student received was a 2. There isn't real surprise. So this is an example of a weak performance in interpersonal speaking. The response partially maintains the exchange with a series of responses that is minimally appropriate within the context of the task. For example, they use ça va, c'est une bonne idée, but that's about it. Provides some required information that is partially understandable with errors that force interpretation and cause confusion to the reader. For example, they say le caméra est une, which has, I don't know why they mentioned the camera. And it says je suis très bon, which is saying like I'm a very like good person kind of thing. Protester l'environnement, which means like to protest the environment. I think they were trying to say protect, but it was the wrong word was used. It demonstrates limited vocabulary resources and limited control of grammar, syntax, and uses. For example, they say je suis très intéressant, which is like I am very interesting, instead of saying I am very interested. Je suis très intéressé. Et quoi les détails? Un bonne idée, not a bonne idée, which is masculine, feminine, gender matching. Je parlais avec toi, which is very poor grammar uses. Pronunciation, intonation, and pacing make the response difficult to comprehend at times. There are a lot of us, so like il y a, j'ai, plus de suggère pour ton événement, il y a beaucoup d'éducation, which again are not very. They're not part of a strong performance. And self-correction does not improve comprehensibility. So tu es bon, that did not really help at all with what they were trying to say. So that is it for our CRAM session today. Thank you for joining, and bonne chance à tous sur les examens d'après. Je vous souhaite un grand succès. You got this. Take a deep breath and you'll do absolutely amazing. It's not that hard. All you need to do is really just know what you're going to say, follow the directions, and hit those check marks, and you will do great. The exam is very fiveable, and you guys are going to do awesome. So just take a deep breath, don't panic, and I know you're all going to do amazing, and I hope you all get a 5 on your exams. Thank you for joining me. I'm the French TA at Fiveable, and this was Hasung-jun. And to keep the conversation going, join us on Discord for forums held by the TAs.
Hi, everyone. So this is our CRAM session number 4 for AP French, and we're going to be discussing the cultural comparison. It's hosted by me. I'm Ishal Warsi, and I'm one of the French TAs. One of the other French TAs will be in the chat and will be answering any questions that you may have that I'm unable to answer. So I'm just going to wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes until a few more people show up, and then we'll get started. Okay, so I'm just going to get started. As I mentioned, this is the CRAM session number 4. I just want to let everyone know that the stream is being recorded and it might appear on our website, YouTube, or other public channels. If you ask a question, your name might appear on the screen as well. So please change your name if you want to avoid this. Right now, I'm going to just play a quick message from Fiveable CEO, Amanda, that you might find interesting.
What up, AP students? It's Amanda here from Fiveable. We are literally giving away $100 to pay for your AP exams to like 50 different students. How do you win? Easy. You just got to post about the AP experience on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. Use the hashtags YesWeCram and with Fiveable, and tag at ThinkFiveable. So one person will win every single day, and this is how you can win. It is going to be a group of students who actually judge the winner. They will pick the winners, and this is how they're going to choose. It has to capture the AP experience. Do they look at that post and think like, that's 100% what this feels like? Is it creative? You know, is it funny? Does it have a really awesome song in it or really good use of some sort of meme? Anything? Do we see creativity and engagement? How many likes do you have? That literally is going to help you win. The more likes, the more likely you are to win. And then finally, does it incorporate Fiveable? Is it in the caption, what you're wearing, in something that you're doing? How have you incorporated Fiveable into it? So this is how you can win. A couple of quick notes. Make sure you follow ThinkFiveable so that we can DM you if you've won. You can post as many times as you want. You can post today, tomorrow, every day, as many times during the day as you want, but you can only win once, so keep that in mind. And finally, some of our best social interns came from this contest last year. So if you're really awesome at social media and you're looking for an internship, show us what you've got because we want to hire you. So I can't wait to see your posts. See you on the flip side. Good luck on your exams. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Amanda, for that.
What up, AP?
So I'm just going to get started. So in this CRAM session, we're going to be talking about what the task entails, what a cultural comparison really is, the directions that you will see on the day of the exam, scoring guidelines, tips and tricks, vocab that will be really handy to use during the exam, practice, and then look at student samples of the practice. So before we get started with all of that, I'm just going to send out a poll to see how you guys are feeling about the exam or how you guys are feeling in general. I'm just going to give it a minute or more, a little bit more. So I'm so happy that no one's feeling terrible about the exam. That's great. That's a great start. And I hope by the end of this CRAM session, you're going to feel even better. So let's just get started. The directions for the task will always be the same, so it's important to memorize the directions. So instead of looking at the directions and having to comprehend what it's wanting you to do, you can just get into it and get ahead with your task. So they will basically read these two pieces of information, which I'm going to read right now, to simulate what it would be like on the day of the exam. So you have 1 minute to read the directions for this task. And then you would read the directions, so I'll read them out to you. You will make an oral presentation on a specific topic to your class. You will have 4 minutes to read the presentation topic and prepare your presentation. Then you will have 2 minutes to record your presentation. In your presentation, compare your own community to an area of the French-speaking world with which you are familiar. You should demonstrate your understanding of cultural features of the French-speaking world. You should also organize your presentation clearly. You will now begin this task. And that is just the French version of it. And so it's really important to notice some of the key words. You're going to have 4 minutes to read the topic and prepare. So you get to 4 minutes to basically read what it wants you to compare. And then you have 4 minutes to basically write down anything that you find is interesting about the topic. And then immediately after the 4 minutes, you will be prompted to record your presentation. So when we're looking at what they're looking for in the culture comparison, they're basically looking for all of these things. So if you do all of these things, you should be getting a 5. So you need to effectively talk about the topic. So if you go off task, that's not good. You also want to clearly compare your community and you want to compare it to another community, and you really need to state that. And not only do you need to state that, you need to use supporting details and relevant examples. You also need to really have an understanding and show the graders that you have a comprehensive understanding of the target culture. It's okay if you make a few mistakes, but they should be relatively clear and effective. You should definitely use some transition words and cohesive devices like idioms or the subjunctive. You need to definitely be understandable. You don't need to talk too fast or too slow. You need to just talk at an even-keeled tone and pace, and you should be fine. You need to use different vocabulary, start your sentences in different ways, use different vocab and idiomatic languages. You also need to make sure that you have proper grammar, and it's okay if you have a few errors, but you should try to be as accurate as possible. With your pronunciation, you need to make sure that you say the words correctly and use the proper intonation in French. And if you make a mistake, you can correct yourself. And if you correct yourself, they actually have like a benchmark for that. So if you correct yourself and it improves what you were saying before, the graders recognize that and will give you a better grade accordingly. 4 is generally the same as 5, except there are some supporting details and some relevant examples. There are some minor inaccuracies. There are also some errors that sometimes may impede comprehensibility, but not really. There's also kind of varied language, although sometimes there may be the same words used over and over again. And pronunciation is clear. And again, when they correct themselves, it helps improve the comprehensibility of the task. And then for getting a 3, you have a fair performance in presentational speaking. So you address the topic well. It's not the greatest, but it's not terrible. You definitely compare a target culture with your community, and you would just include a few supporting details, not as many as, say, someone with a 4 or 5 would. There's some organization, but there's not too many uses of transitional elements or transition words. You're usually understandable as well, but sometimes what you say may not be entirely understood by the grader. You have a good control over your grammar, but you may make a few mistakes. And when you correct yourself, it sometimes improves comprehensibility. So when someone is correcting themselves, it may not actually help the grader better understand what they were trying to get across. And then a weak performance in presentational speaking means you're not really treating the topic properly. The target culture, you're not really comparing them, and it's mostly just general statements with no development in between. You have a limited understanding and you have a lot of inaccuracies. There is very limited organization as well, and you don't use, or you may use transitional elements ineffectively. You may not be very understandable, and the grader might have confusion listening to you or interpreting what you're trying to say. You also have limited control over grammar and vocab and idiomatic language. Your pronunciation is kind of difficult to comprehend at times, and it definitely impedes the comprehensibility. And when you do try to correct yourself, it doesn't actually improve what you were saying, and the reader still doesn't understand what you meant. And I'm sure no one watching this is going to receive this, but this basically means that you're not even talking about the topic. You're hardly understandable. You're not using proper grammar. And it's very hard to understand you. However, this is really rare to get. If you make an effort, you should be getting a good grade, at least a 2 and above, if you address the topic and give some type of development. So yeah, that is kind of the scoring guidelines that the graders are going to be looking at. It's really important to familiarize yourself with these ideas, because you need to know what they are looking for, so then you can put forward and use elements and use vocab that you know that they will be looking for. So first, one of the first tips and tricks you should definitely do is familiarize yourself with basic concepts and ideas from French-speaking countries. It's really important that you understand the culture of, you don't have to understand every single French-speaking country, but you should have a decent understanding of ones that you find yourself you're more comfortable with. So that typically is France for a lot of students. It's also Canada for a lot of students. We also have certain African countries that people are familiar with, like Algeria and Morocco. And so these are the types of you need to have a basic understanding of what society is like, the types of ideas that they have, what their political structure is like, what the people eat, their religion, their education and values. And what you need to do is you need to find trends and you need to find patterns within those countries. So in some countries, you may find that they're a lot more conservative, and some countries you may find are a lot more open and liberal. And so you really need to understand what those countries are like and be able to use that information in a cultural comparison. And hopefully you have been doing this entire year and you have a decent understanding of the main Francophone countries. It's also really important that you have an introduction planned out that builds a basic framework for your comparison. So you don't want to be making up an introduction on the spot. Once you should be coming out of the gate pretty strong, and that makes a really good impression on the grader. So, for example, you could say Bonjour, aujourd'hui je parlerai de, and then you would state what countries you're going to be talking about. So let's say France and the US. Et comment il est similaire et différent dans les deux pays qui sont. And then, you would actually do Bonjour, aujourd'hui je parlerai de, and you would talk about the topic that you're addressing. And then you would say how I'm going to be talking about how they're similar and different in two countries, which are, and then you would say France and the US, or you could do Canada and the US, or your own community. So a specific city, the more specific you can get, the better. So your own city, let's say you live in LA, so you would talk about LA, and then you would compare it to, say, Morocco. And that helps the grader understand what you're going to be talking about and whether you have a good understanding of the topic. Because if you mention what you're going to be talking about and it lines up with what they're looking for, and also you mentioned the two countries, you've kind of already built a good framework for what they're looking for. You definitely need to organize your thoughts. So when you're doing your presentation, you need to have a clear introduction. You need to discuss the similarities and differences. The more nuance you can get, the better. You also need to discuss the aspects of one culture and then discuss the aspects of the other culture. So you don't want to be discussing them simultaneously because it can become really difficult to understand for the grader. Rather, you should focus on one country and then halfway through focus on the other country or the other culture, and that should be better. When you're in the kind of developing ideas phase, you want to use a Venn diagram or maybe like a T-table to organize your thoughts, something that where you can easily see what the similarities and the differences are. And so it'll be really good to use something like a Venn diagram because you can see the similarities quite easily, and you can also see the major differences, and it's not hard to like quickly glance over if you've kind of lost your train of thought. It's also really great if you can add in subjunctive phrases or idioms. That makes your presentation stand out from all the other students, because a lot of students will be using typical words like bien et je crois, je pense. And if you can use some more interesting sentences, it will really make you stand out, and it will definitely help you get a better grade. It's also important to use interesting transition words. So you don't want to just keep on saying and you want to have some development as we looked at in the scoring guidelines. They're looking for those cohesive devices and those transitional words. So for transition words, you have typical ones like ensuite, puis, and then you also have a little bit more formal ones like cependant or bien que, which is a subjunctive phrase, alors que, another subjunctive phrase. And so that will definitely make your presentation a lot more interesting. You also, please do not use to or informal language in the presentation. A presentation is meant to be formal, and you want to address the grader if you are addressing them at all, and you want to use vous. So do not use to, because that shows that you don't have a good understanding of what a presentation is and what it entails. And please do not say chose. You need to specify what you're referring to. So you don't want to just say things, because things are not specific. When you start talking about the specific ideas or elements that you're talking about, that will be a lot more effective for your grader to understand what you're referring to. And same thing, you want to specify the communities you're talking about. So, you know, if you're in the exam and you can't think of anything other than like broad ideas like countries, that's fine. But if you can kind of come up with more specific communities, like, as I mentioned, if you can talk about LA versus a certain country like Paris. So if you want to talk about LA versus Paris, that's even better, because it shows that you have a very in-depth understanding rather than a broad understanding. And honestly, you just need to keep on speaking. You're going to do great, but if you stop, you're not allowing yourself to express yourself as to your fullest potential. So what you want to do is you want to keep on speaking. Obviously, that doesn't mean to use filler words, but you need to, if you need to take a breath, that's fine, but you need to keep on going, and you should be using the entire time that you're given, or close to almost all of it. So these are some words that you could be using. We have de la même façon, so in the same way, and pareillement, which is similarly, and identiquement, in exactly the same manner. I know they mean the exact same things, more or less, but when you use, like, if you use only de la même façon, it shows that maybe that's the only one you know, but when you start using kind of the other ones, it gives the impression to the grader that you have a good grasp of explaining how things are similar. And then when you're explaining things that are different, you could talk about en revanche, on the other hand. That's a really good transition word when you're going from one community to another community. So when you're kind of you're done talking about one community and now you want to go to the other. D'un côté à l'autre côté. That's really important when you're trying to talk about maybe the contrast between the two. So like we could talk about how one country maybe is very conservative, very religious, whereas the other, you could talk about the other community is a lot less emphasis on religion, and it's more very into like science and technology, and that can help build some type of contrast. À l'inverse has kind of the same usage as the other words in the contrasting column. So these are just some words you can use. If you have preferences with other words, use them. Just use words that you know that you will be able to use, and definitely get into the habit of using them in these last few days so that it comes to you naturally on the day of the exam. These are just transition words. So cependant means however, néanmoins means nevertheless, mais means but, tandis que, while. So like while the certain community is religious, the other community is not very religious, and that could be a way that you transition. Alors que, which is even though, d'abord. So first, you could be talking about first, I'm going to be talking about this country, then I'm going to talk about the other country. Tout bien considéré, all things considered, that could be kind of your ending phrase that you kind of sign off on and say, all things considered, the countries are very similar or very different. Whatever countries or communities you pick, that's all going to be dependent on that. Cela va sans dire que. It goes without saying. So you could talk about how it's pretty obvious. Like if there's something really obvious about a certain community, you could talk about that. Je voudrais souligner que, I would like to underline that. That's a lot more formal. It shows that you know how to use different tenses. Subjunctive is really good for il faut que. It's necessary that we highlight, for example, or I highlight. Puis and ensuite is just then. It's very simple, but it's very effective as well. And then par exemple, please don't use par exemple too much, but if you need to use it, it's a good transition word here or there. So all the following examples and comments are from judges that were obtained from the College Board website. So this is something that's available to the public, and you can practice with some others on the College Board website. So right now I'm going to give you 4 minutes on the clock to kind of practice this subject. So the subject is quelle est l'importance de la manière de s'habiller pour les gens de votre communauté? And you have to obviously compare what you've seen in these communities or what you've read about them. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes on the clock to kind of be able to come up with some ideas, and you can also go ahead and just start writing. So your time starts now. You have 1 minute remaining. Okay, so your time is up for the preparation period. Now I'm going to put 2 minutes for you to be able to practice a presentation. So I'm going to put 2 minutes and I'll let you know when you should be done. I'm going to give you about like a minute to just be able to kind of get some type of recording device so that you're able to listen to yourself back when you kind of are comparing what you said to what other people that I'm going to show you later said, and you might be able to make a better kind of assessment of what you need to improve on and where you are right now. So I'm just going to give you 1 minute to gather any supplies that you need to record yourself. And please do not work on the preparation because that's not an accurate picture of what you're able to do in the time period. Okay, so I hope you guys have gotten some type of recording device, and I'm just going to put 2 minutes on the clock starting now. Okay, so your time is up. Now we're going to be looking at some samples, and yeah, let's get started. So I want you guys to guess what score you think that this student received. I'm going to play their sample, and I'm going to want you guys to tell me what you think this student got.
Student sample 4A.
Bonjour, aujourd'hui je vais faire la comparaison entre la France et la Chine concernant l'importance de la mode. Donc en premier, en France, je crois que la mode a un rôle qui est très important. Par exemple, quand je suis allée en France, j'ai remarqué que les gens prennent le temps pour s'habiller très élégantement. Et il y a aussi les grandes marques françaises qui sont très célèbres. Donc, par exemple, il y a les marques comme Chanel ou Dior, et millions de personnes achètent le prêt-à-porter de ces marques. Et ces marques soulignent et sensibilisent l'importance de la mode en France. Il y a aussi les spectacles de mode avec beaucoup de mannequins célèbres en France. Donc, au total, je crois que la mode a un rôle très important en France. Mais de plus, je vais parler à propos de la Chine. La mode est aussi très importante en Chine, mais en Chine, la mode est très influencée par les autres pays. Donc, mes amies chinoises souvent suivent les personnes célèbres des États-Unis et aussi de Corée du Sud. Donc, c'est comme les personnes comme Kendall Jenner ou les bandes comme BTS. Mais la Chine est un pays qui valorise beaucoup la beauté et la mode. Donc, la mode a un rôle qui est très central en Chine. Donc aujourd'hui, j'ai fait la comparaison entre la France et la Chine concernant l'importance et le rôle de la mode et j'ai montré que la mode a un rôle très clé dans tous les deux pays. Merci de m'avoir écouté et au revoir.
Okay, so that was the sample. And I'm going to open up a poll so you guys can vote on what you think the student received. Okay, so it seems like you guys think that this student received a 5. That's what you guys think the student got. And that's actually correct. That's exactly what the student got. It's a really strong performance in the cultural comparison. And we're going to be talking about what they did specifically. So they definitely compare their community to the target culture. So they talk about La Chine, China, and they compare it to France, and they include supporting details and relevant examples. So they talk about how in France, people kind of take time to dress up very elegantly, and there's a lot of big brands, big French brands that are really famous. There's like, for example, and then they even give an example. So there's like Chanel and Dior, and millions of people kind of buy their these types of fashion from these brands. There's also kind of a really organized presentation using a lot of transitional elements and cohesive devices. So this is a really great way. So ces marques soulignent et sensibilisent l'importance de la mode en France. It's really kind of putting it out there and explaining how the brands show the importance of fashion in France. And she also uses donc en première, au total, mais de plus, all of which are really good transition elements to use in the presentation. The response is fully understandable, and she uses a lot of different vocabulary. So there's concernant, les grandes marques, souligne, mannequin, valorise, all of which are really interesting words that are not always used in typical settings. There is some errors, so les grandes marques françaises, kind of like this agreement error, and un rôle très important, again, an agreement error, but overall, it's nothing that impedes comprehensibility. So now we're going to be looking at this other student, and I want you guys to listen to it, and then we'll open up a poll to see what you think the student received.
Student sample 4B.
Bonjour, aujourd'hui, je discuterai sur un sujet qui est très intéressant à moi. Ce sujet est l'importance de la manière de s'habiller pour les gens de mon communauté et de la communauté dans le pays francophone Madagascar. Dans ma communauté, la manière de s'habiller est très casuelle, très confortable, et il y a une grande influence des sports et des cultures de sport dans les États-Unis. En plus, les personnes probablement, spécifiquement, les gens, les garçons dans ma communauté ont habillé les vêtements avec les couleurs d'équipe de football américain, de football et de baseball. Aussi, ils s'habillent des vêtements avec le numéro d'équipier qu'ils aiment. En Madagascar, il y a les deux types de façons de communiquer. Les personnes qui vivent dans les grandes villes dans Madagascar, il y a certainement d'influence du Ouest et les vêtements comme les États-Unis, comme la France, comme l'Allemagne, etc. Mais les personnes qui ne pas vivent dans les villes, il n'est pas l'influence du Ouest et ils s'habillent des vêtements très traditionnels. Ils s'habillent moins de vêtements parce que la température et la culture et le climat de Madagascar. Et aussi, ils habillent des vêtements traditionnels avec les matières traditionnelles et une influence de l'art de Madagascar. Et il y a des similarités et des différences de la manière de s'habiller dans ma communauté et la communauté de Madagascar.
End of student sample 4B.
Okay, so that was the second example that we're going to be looking at today. I'm just going to put out a poll. I want you guys to tell me what you think the student received. So I'm just opening up the poll right now. So according to y'all, you think that this student received a 3. So let's take a look. Yeah, the student did receive a 3, so you guys are 2 for 2. It's an example of a fair performance in presentational speaking. There is definitely some comparison between the target culture, and there are a few supporting details. So they talk about how they're comparing the U.S. to Madagascar, and it talks about how he talks about how in his community they kind of dress very casually, very comfortably. There's a lot of influence of sports, and there's a huge sports culture in the U.S. It demonstrates a basic understanding of the target culture. It talks about how they kind of wear less clothes because of the temperature. Obviously, it's very hot in Madagascar, and they wear kind of traditional clothes in traditional manners due to, and that's an influence of the art of Madagascar. So it's kind of like there are some inaccuracies, but it's a very it is an understanding of what Madagascar entails. There's also limited use of transitional elements, so we have very basic ones like en plus, aussi, mais, very typical ones that you see regularly. There are some errors, so les garçons de mon communauté ont habillé. There's kind of omission of the proper verbs. They talk about les vêtements avec les couleurs d'équipe. Ils s'habillent moins de vêtements. These are they're a bit confusing to understand, but once the grader kind of looks at it, they do have a general idea of what they're talking about. There's very basic vocabulary, so vêtements, équipe, équipière, ouest, all of which are things that students would typically be able to kind of look to. There is some control over grammar. Sometimes they do try to correct themselves, and it does improve the comprehensibility. Les personnes, ils habitent, s'habiller, that's kind of the errors, but they also sometimes do improve their comprehensibility. So he talks about il n'est, and then he says il est, and then he says il n'est pas l'influence, and that's kind of showing kind of the transition and how he's able to correct himself. So we're going to be looking at the very last sample. I want you all to tell me what the student received, but let's take a look at it first.
Student sample 4C.
L'agent de mon communauté, c'est s'habillant de haute manière parce qu'ils se peuvent exprimer comme ils veulent. Par exemple, aux États-Unis, dans Miami, il est très chaud et touristique. Et les personnes se mis avec, ils ont mis du short avec un t-shirt, des chaussures, des baskets. Ils s'habillent très casual. Pour exemple, pour aller en fête, les femmes s'est mis une robe avec une blouse très chic. Mais dans la France, précisément à Paris, et c'est un peu cool, mais les gens, ils sont mis de jeans ou des sandales, ou dans Paris, ils se mis très élégant. Ils met des belles robes, des femmes se met des belles robes pour aller à quelque place, ou ils met des chemises très belles, ou des jeans,
End of student sample 4C.
Okay, so I'm just going to open up the poll and see what you guys think they received. Okay, so you guys think that this student received a 2. They actually did receive a 2. So you guys have gotten all of them correct. So it's really great that you guys know kind of what's expected and what's not a good performance in cultural comparison. So again, it's kind of a weak performance. It's not a very good treatment of the topic. There is some information about the student's own community and the target culture, but it's relatively just statements and no development. It talks about Miami and Paris. So I do like that there is kind of these specific communities, but it doesn't really develop them quite well. So they talked about how they kind of wear shorts or t-shirts and shoes and very casually, and yes, but it kind of takes them a long time to get there, and there's not much development that happens. It talks about how in Paris they kind of wear these beautiful dresses to go somewhere, and again, the vagueness of the word somewhere is not great to use in a cultural comparison. You want to be as specific as possible. Dans la France, au précisément de Haute-Paris, et c'est un peu cool, mais les gens, see, it's very kind of limited. There's not much development. I'm having trouble understanding what they're trying to say right now. So it's not great. There's also not a lot of organization. There's basic words like parce que, par exemple, but nothing too fancy. It's partially understandable as well. So they talk about les femmes se mettent semi une robe avec une blouse très chic. It's not very clear what they're trying to say there, and it takes them a very long time to even reach the conclusion of their sentence, which is not good when you have such a limited amount of time. It's very hot, touristy, shoes, belle robe, des chemises, that very limited vocabulary. These are things that kind of even less advanced French students would be able to understand, which is obviously not the goal of AP French. It's very hot, to go somewhere. They express themselves how they want, and it's just very convoluted. There's not a lot of development happening, and there's not a lot of good grammar. The pronunciation is very difficult to understand, and it also does not, their self-correction does not actually improve the comprehensibility. So it's not a great example of what you should be doing. However, you can see that they did try, and because of them trying, they did earn a 2. So don't give up, guys. Just keep on pushing through. It's definitely nerve-wracking, but I know you guys can do it. So that's the end of the session today. Bonne chance à tous sur l'examen d'AP. Je vous souhaite un grand succès. You got this. You just need to take a deep breath and you're going to do amazing. If you've been following along with all the sessions on Fiverrable, you have all the tips and tricks that you need to succeed. Just make sure to be getting in practice, increase your French speaking time, increase your exposure to French. Even if you think it's not going to make a difference, try to do it. Listen to podcasts, listen to French music on Spotify. Try to expose yourself as much to French in the days leading up to the exam. I hope that this session was useful to everyone, and I'll catch you on the flip side.